Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello. Oh, pardon me. Hello. I'm Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole. And right before I went live, I clicked on the wrong thing with my cursor, and then I had the wrong window forward, one that I don't want to see because it's not the ones I have in my control station. There are things that I like to see and not see. Hey, everyone. Hey, Clockwork Librarian and Schmedza. Rissa, how are you all doing? Sorry for the super late start. There was compounding excitement going on right there that led to this start time. One, hey, Wizard Styles. One, I went and I talked to a friend of mine on the phone last night who lives on the West Coast. And we were talking about, I wanted to, he's a hey, Atomica and Barantor. Barantor, are you good? To know there have been tornadoes all over your part of the world. I want to make sure that you're all right. Woo! I see those bits, and I'm going to tell you all things. All right, do I actually have my alerts seem right? Okay, look. So I'm going to sing that, but I don't want to forget this. So my buddy David is also a dance scholar. He's an ethnomusicologist. Woo! The name game of Bargamon. He's an ethnomusicologist, and he does social dance, and we talk about social dance quite a lot, he and I, because I also have a background in social dance, and I have not written, I technically have written about some social dance in my dissertation, but like he has done all these ethnographies on social dance, and he's written quite a lot about it, and I was talking to him about when I went country dancing the other day, and like how I felt about it and like some of the observations that I made. Barantor asked, thank you for asking. The tornadoes were well west of me. We did some warnings at 4 a.m. last night. Oof. Well, I'm glad that you're okay. And as a matter of fact, I need to actually just check in with Grimjack as well to make sure that Grimjack is all right. I think he is, but just to be safe. And so we were talking about this, the experience I had going to this two-step a night, and how I was not particularly excited about the experience, but like sort of analyzing the different ways in which people social dance and different scenes, and what kind of place that place is, like the difference between a bar that people go to all the time, like a country bar that people go to all the time, and then also people dance, and a nightclub that has a once a week country night or once a month country night where people go to line dance, right? Like we had a lot of things anyway. And then he said this thing that was like really, really, I was like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that at all. And so, we were talking about this last time, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to I probably won't know all the line dances because a lot of the line dances I know are bounded in time, right? They're like, it's the Yakey Breaky or the whatever. And I was like, I'm probably sure they're not doing that anymore. Ooh, I see you, Jer. By the way, I'm going to do all the singing once I finish the story, and then it's going to happen. What happened was we were talking about it, and so when I went there, they did the boot, scoot, and boogie. I can't remember who said it, but they did do the boot, scoot, and boogie. What about that weird waitress line dancing at Texas Roadhouse? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, and the thing is that we were talking about line dancing, and actually I was able to come up with some really good, what's really great about talking to somebody who knows their stuff, is that I can get new ideas when I'm talking to them, because I was like, I can like get into more detail. And I was talking about, because so David and I both do Lindy hopping, like as well does Laugh Love Lindy. We are all sort of Lindy hoppers, and he also does tango, and we both do some of the same social dances, but we also do different ones, right? So he doesn't do any of the country dances. So for me, that would be two-step, country waltz, Cotton Eye Joe, polka, country polka, and then various line dances. And he doesn't do any of those, but we both do Lindy hopping and East Coast swing together. He does blues, which I haven't done. He does tango, which I don't do. I've done Victorian ballroom dance, which he doesn't do. But anyway, we have overlap and some differences. And so it's been, and he has written this book that has just come out, which I'm very excited about, all about social dancing and various sort of like politics of social dance. Hey, Prax. And so, like, we were talking about the politics. So anyway, I was talking to him about, like, line dances, and I was explaining to him that in my experience, I was making this distinction. Look, we're having a quick conversation. I'm going to sing all those things, and I'm very excited about it, but I just want to get this out there. I was talking about the two different types of experiences when it comes to a social dance, and they're not, one's not bad, one's not good, they're just different, right? Hey, courier. And in a place where people just do the tradition, they just do it, it's just like a part of their tradition, right? Like there are a bunch of salsa bars like this, a bunch of country bars like this, there are a bunch of places. I don't think there are a lot of Lindy hop spaces because that's a tradition that has died and been brought back. But a place where people just go, like, you know, in my experience with like country bars and salsa bars and these other places, they're just bars that people go and hang out at, and people dance there because that's what you do. And that's different from, hey, it's a special salsa dance night, or it's a special, you know, country dance night, where the hour before the dance starts, there's a beginner's lesson, and like instructors will come in, like teach you how to do the dance, and then you go and you do the dance. Whereas the other places, there are no instructors. You just go because you're going to the bar, and if you want to learn how to dance, someone's like, oh, you don't know how to dance? Oh, let me teach you how to do a two-step or whatever, right? And then somebody teaches you and you just dance, right? So it's like a very different sort of vibe. And it's a very different sort of vibe. Anyway, I was talking about how this was like one of the ones where people go and specifically like, oh, we're gonna do our like special country night, whatever. And I was like, oh my god, I'm looking at these people, and I was like, yep, they're doing the ballroom dance hold. Like there's a couple different ways in which you can do a hold for two-stepping. It is banjo time, and they were doing the ballroom dance hold rather than like the kind of dance hold that I learned how to do in bars. And they also had a very upright ballroom dance kind of posture, and they stepped and they didn't, rather than shuffled. Like there's a bunch of different like body carriage differences between the two, and I was like, oh, I noticed it because I've seen it sometimes before. But, and here's the thing that I wanted to share with you, because this was the point. We were talking about line dances, and I said, you know, there are a series of line dances that I think of as being, if it's banjo time, why are you talking about dancing instead of banjo time? Because like I have to, like I started the story, I can't start the banjo till I finish it. Like I've got to do the order of operations. Anyway, so, but it's like, it is banjo time before it's game time is what I'm saying. So there are a couple of line dances I think of as being like standard line dances in a country bar, that if you go to a country bar that's a country bar, there are gonna be a couple that you're probably gonna see all the time, and they're usually not tied to specific songs, but you're gonna get like the Four Corners, which is basically electric slide. You'll probably get the Tush Push, that one's pretty like popular. Maybe you'll get the Reggae Cow, but there's certain like ones that sort of persist, and those are usually not that difficult. The line dances themselves are not that difficult. Like if you've never line danced before and you're at a bar and there are no instructors because it's not that kind of bar, and you're watching people do the Four Corners, you can watch them and then you can pick up the moves, right? Like if you have like any sort of like basic dancing skills, even if you don't, like you can pick up the moves of those basic line dances pretty quickly. And then, so they're basic enough that anyone can pick them up just by watching, but they have enough flexibility that you could do cool styling and like make it more advanced if you wanted to, if you're like super fancy. And so those are like the bulk of the line dances I would see in most of the country bars. And then, especially with when line dancing became a bit more popular, you might get some more complicated line dances. Like the Achy Breaky was pretty complicated, but there weren't like a whole lot of them. There was like maybe like the newest one, the Romeo, a couple ones that are a little bit more complicated, a bit longer, a bit more complicated steps, but like, you know. Anyway, so when I went to this club the other night, they did almost exclusively line dancing. There was very few people doing a two-step, which is a pretty basic step that anyone can do. Very few people were two-stepping, and almost everyone, almost the entire time they were line dancing. The only line dance they did that I knew was the Boot, Scoot, and Boogie, which I did, that was fine. But here's the thing. I'm a pretty, like, I have a lot of experience line dancing and dancing in general, so I can pick up line dances pretty easily. And I'm watching them do the line dances, and the line dances they were doing were hella complicated. They were what I would like call these like massively compound line dances that are to very specific songs, and you are not going to pick those up without a lot of practice, and probably you're going to take a class on it. Like you're probably going to go to an instructor, pay them money, take a class. And I'm watching them do some of these line dances, and I was like, oh wow, I can probably pick this up if I really concentrate for the entire song. By the last rotation I can probably get it. But I was like, I am not going to do that. But I was talking to David, this is the important point, here's the end point. I was talking to David about how right, how I ended up not dancing with anyone because again, people weren't really two-stepping, and the vibe was weird. And he's like, yeah, he says, if you want, he said, that was not a welcoming environment. They may not have realized it was. I spent the whole night doing the Wallflower Tango. I did. And And he said they probably did not realize it was not welcoming, but if what everyone is doing are really, really complicated line dances that new people cannot pick up unless they've paid money to get a dance instruction, that means new people are not going to feel welcome dancing there. And if you want people to feel welcome dancing there, you need to do these other line dances. Like, yeah, that makes sense. And so it was this kind of, it's just this little, it was kind of like an interesting, I was like, it was a very cliquish sort of environment. And it was just that moment where I was like, oh, yeah. It was able to put into words this thing that I was thinking about that I hadn't like conceptualized that way, but I did. And it was really interesting then, right? Because like the intellectual thing that I think is really fascinating to think about is thinking about, what kind of dances is your basic dance at that space, and is it accessible to new people, and how that then impacts whether or not your space is welcoming or not. Like if everyone's like, oh, we're so happy to see you, but the dances you're doing are not dances that new beginners or intermediates can participate in, then it actually isn't a welcoming space. And that if you want to make your space more welcoming, you have to be really thoughtful about the dances that people are doing while they're there. And I was like, yeah. So like, this is like, that was like part of the thought about being welcoming is not just saying, hey, it's so good to see you here. We like it. We'd like to have you here. But also, is the activity accessible to people other than the clique of people who've been there the entire time? Right. It's like in-jokes. Is line dance not for the lonely cowboys who are too shy to ask someone to dance with them? No. Line dancing is a whole thing. It's about group. It's about like a group. And then there's so many different line dances, right? Like contra dance has Victorian ballroom dance has a bunch of line dances and sort of line dances. Oh gosh, there's some really good line dances. What was that one? There was this one line dance, which I have not done in like 20, 30 years. And it's actually a circle dance where you have, you and a partner, like doesn't matter who, you get one inner circle, one outer circle, you and your partner do a couple of moves, and then you like rotate to the person to your left, right? It's like these two circles and each person rotates. And that, I can't remember what that one was called, but that was a very fun dance. I did that one like 25 years ago. That one was fun. Line dancing is square dancing for people too cool for squares. Yeah. I would say have like an adult swim session every now and then where it's like, here's a more complicated song, but yeah, if everything is above an intermediate level, it's going to be unwelcoming, says Tom. Like, absolutely. And I think that because it was such a small group of people, and they were all in this kind of clique, I do not think they even thought about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was even on their radar. So I was just like, it was just like a thing to think about. And I was like, oh, there's like a new, I'm going to plug in my phone while we're talking. That's like a new insight. I thought that was interesting. Anyhow, so that was that. What was the other thing I wanted to tell you? Like I had like so that was that. So anyway, that conversation went on to like 4 a.m, which meant that I got my start at 11 rather than like 10. Which was all right. And then I was like, oh, I got to take care of my tattoo because I've got a new tattoo, which is here. And then the PS4 needed a huge install. So anyway, that's why I have a late start today. But I'm happy to be here, and we'll probably play until like 3:30. Artie Snack says, "Hey Trooper, just think if this is how quickly Trooper talks, how amazing his thoughts must be." Oh. Yeah, I didn't realize I was speaking that quickly. I do tend to speak very quickly, but I try to slow it down. I have practiced over time at slowing my speaking down so that I do not speak as quickly as I want to. Yeah. Barentor says, I know one country bar I went to had nights where there were beginner dances and then nights where they were more complex. It wasn't announced, so kind of cliquish in that manner until you knew the nights. Yeah. What's interesting to me is that the bars that I went to usually just didn't have lessons at all because they were just bars. And people would dance. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so there weren't lessons. If you wanted to learn, usually you would find somebody who danced and you'd be like, hey, can you teach me how to do something? They'd say, sure. You know, like anyone would teach anybody because it was interesting. Crown says, you should have told them not to break my heart, my achy break heart. I really should have. That's what I should have done. Ice Bunny says, at the Culture Festival, the line dancer association made it look like stereotype cowboy. And I just watched them because I wanted to be front row for the Balboa presentations from the swing dancers. Yeah. Well, I mean, swing dancing is a part of the country and Western tradition. Line dancing is part of the country Western tradition. It's also part of contra dancing and like there are a bunch of traditions that have it, but line dancing is super fun. I enjoy a good line dance. It's because you get to dance with other people. It's cool. Artie Snack says, you just have too much wisdom to share. Oh, thank you, Artie. And Prax says, I have thoughts, but I know that typing them would not include nuance now. I want to hear your thoughts. Prax, can you give us, like, a little bit of your thoughts? Just, like, a little? That, I mean, you know, if you wanted, you didn't have to, but, you know. If you did. Okay, so, right. Now, so I'm just going to ask this. Was it country, but it was country, but it was also Atlanta. So I'm wondering how racially, the crowd was not at all racially diverse at all. Not in the least bit. And it was also quite small. And I also felt like, they were a little bit embarrassed by country music. I know that sounds very weird. But as I was watching them, I picked up very quickly, because I have experience with other dances, that they were not exclusively country Western dancers. Like, I was like, oh, that one dances swing. Oh, they do West Coast swing. Oh, they were people who did social dance, generally speaking. And they were clearly, like, the two instructors were clearly paid to do country line dance, let's be fair, country line dance instructions on Thursdays, right? And so they are a group of people who very clearly dance a wide variety of dances, not just country and Western. And I felt sometimes that they were a little bit embarrassed by the country Westernness of it all. And I say that because quite a lot of the dance moves were from Lindy Hop. Like, in some of the line dances, they were doing some of the more complicated line dances. Some of the dance moves were from Lindy Hop, and it's like, oh, that's a Lindy Hop dance move. That is not a country. That's a Lindy Hop line dance move, not a country Western line dance move. And it didn't. And they played a lot of non-country music, not like like they played Lizzo, Boys by Lizzo, and they did a line dance to that, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And of course, I've been to country bars where people would two-step to, like, top 40, but a lot of the country songs they played were also kind of remixes that made them less country feeling. And they didn't play a lot of, I want to say, the problem, I'm looking for an adjective, and I cannot think of an adjective that does what I want it to do, because I don't want it to, because what I do not want to do is reinforce authenticity, right? So I don't want to say authentic country or real country, because that's not what I mean at all. I mean, everything is doing its thing, but more like, central to things you would hear on country radio. Like, the sound wasn't what you hear on country radio, either now or 10 years ago. And they didn't play a lot of songs that were sort of, what I would call, like, in the center of, like, country radio or country, chart experience. And if they did, they were often remixes, but not remixed. I'm used to remixes of country songs for dancing, but for country bar dancing, right? So usually it's like an extended mix, maybe it's slightly heavier on the kick drum. And this was like a mix that made it feel more like a song you would hear in a nightclub, not a country bar, which has been happening for a while. Like, I mean, I think Shania Twain did an entire Bollywood remix of one of her albums. But it just kind of felt to me like they were, yeah, it did not feel like a country night. Oh my gosh. And a number of the dancers were wearing hip hop dance sneakers, rather than boots. Like, it was just a weird experience is what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say. Baron Tor says, the embarrassment I found in bars that are in non-traditionally country areas, SoCal had a few like that. Yeah. Courier said, I went out to a gay electronic club night on Thursday. It was pretty empty all night. I was super disappointed. Oh, I'm so sorry. I do love a good electronic dance night. Crone says, oh yeah, if they were normally swing dancers, I could see how Simple Two Sips would just not do anything for them. Traditional ersatz feels too judgy. Traditional, maybe traditional. It's tricky. Like, it's tricky because I don't want to be too judgy, right? Because I think this other thing is a thing. Like, I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just it's its own thing, right? Barentor was saying, I was listening to Shania last night and looking up what's been up with her lately. Oh, she did a duet with, Shania just did a duet with Orville Peck, Legends Ever Die, which is very good. You should go and watch that video. Prax says, so before I say anything else, what was the name of this place? Generally, what part of, I see. Stereotypical. I feel like traditional is maybe a little bit better, although it's, what's tricky with traditional, the word traditional, I mean, I like it better than the other ones because it seems a little bit less judgy. The only problem with traditional is that when people say traditional, they tend to imagine something that's not true, which Prax can totally co-sign. And that is that people tend to think that traditions are unbroken and not changing. Like if I do traditional country dance, that's how they did it 100 years ago. But that's just not true. Everything always changes. Even if you're like, I'm doing the most traditional version of whatever it is you're doing ever, it's probably different. You know what I mean? Like traditional country music of the 50s does not sound like traditional country music of the 70s. Traditional and traditional dancing also isn't the same because traditional also just changes over time, right? Like it just changes over time as well. People pretend like it doesn't, but everything changes all the time. And sometimes traditions are just made up, right? Like sometimes people make up traditions whole cloth right then and there, and people then imagine they've been around for 100 years, but they just started like 5 years earlier. There are a bunch of traditions that were just made up really recently, but people then sort of forget it, right? Yeah, and Ice Bunny says traditions change all the time, right? So it's not exactly like the stupid elf on the shelf. Yes. And so it's not. So I don't want to. Like I'm trying to be really careful because what I don't want to do is say like, oh, that's old. What I'm used to is the old style, and the other thing is the new style, because I don't think that's true either. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't feel like that's actually accurate. People might say that, but I don't think it's true. So I'm trying to like get a sense of it's hard to describe it for me. I think it's part of and this is what I was talking to my friend about like until 3 a.m. Traditional D&D, like JRR, play with Christopher. Yes. Krellin says, so I took your answer before one way, but now I think it might be the other. Was it non-diverse in a way you fit in or stood out? I think I stood out actually, rather than fit in, because I was there because I would, let's say they're just different traditions, right? My tradition of country dancing is a different tradition of country dancing than this bar, is what I would say, right? Well, actually, nightclub. So I feel like I stood out because I was doing a different tradition. I think that is what I would say. Almost like they were playing it being country. I don't think they were playing it being country. They're just being country in a different way, or. Oh, Prax, because Prax wanted to know where it was. So the bar's Heretic, and it is, well, and here's the thing. One of the reasons why I'm excited to find out what Prax has to say is because Prax knows Atlanta and has been there before, and so has some context that I do not have because I've never been there. So Heretic is Cheshire Bridge Road, northeast Atlanta. Let's see if I can see a map where this is. It is. Oops, pardon me. All right, so the Heretic looks like it is north. It's never eat shredded wheat. It's west of Emory University. It's north of Morningside Lenox Park, northeast of Piedmont Heights, south of Landridge Martin Manor. I don't know these places. It is south of the 85. It's like kind of due south of where the 85 and the 400 meet. It is near. It looks like there's a bunch of restaurants there, like Taqueria del Sol, Taverna Placa, Little Bangkok, Blue Lagoon Bar and Bistro, Havana Cheshire Bridge. That is what I know about it. I don't know lots about the location where it's at, but that is what I can tell you. It is north of where I live. It is northeast of Midtown Atlanta and Atlantic Station, northwest of Decatur. but it looks like it's, I mean, it's still inside the perimeter, but it's north of the 20. Those are the things I can tell you, but I don't know. I don't have uh, uh, the I don't have more context details, right? So Prax knows things, and I want to know what Prax knows. Ice Bunny says some people from Scandinavia took them with them to America. Here in Denmark, they're called Nissa and protect the farm. No. They're different. They're different kind of elves. Our version of elves, Ice Bunny, are not your Nissa. We have done completely different things with our elves. Prax is like, wait, I have thoughts based on that. All you know is that it's on Pressure Bridge Road. Trooper, Prax is going to tell me something. People here feed them rice puddings. Yeah. Maybe they're trying to be heretical to the traditional country then. Oh, gosh. Apparently Prax has got info, which I'm excited about, or maybe I'm scared, or maybe I am full of excitement. Oh, yes, absolutely. Prax, join me in voice. Join me in voice in on let's see if I can join you in voice in Discord and have it show up. It'll be our experiment. All right, wait. First off, everybody, can you hear Prax? I feel like they can't. Wait. No. Can you hear? Can you hear? You should be able to hear them. No, they're not hearing you yet. Let me see. So I need to get you from there to there. But if I am sharing my sound through OBS, but it's why is it that? Because it's you know what it is? It's it should be there, but what happens if I do? You know what? Hold on. You know what I think is interesting? I think it's, let me find out where my sound is going in. Yes, that's what I need to do. I need to know what my Discord is doing. Oh, I'm so excited to find out about this. Voice and video. Oh, okay, so my output device is here, so that's not what I want. Let me put my output device here.
There we go.
All right, can we hear you?
It's fine.
Yes, we can hear you. It's a little weird, but we can hear you. Yes.
Oh wait, Creator's saying they can't hear me now?
Yes, you're a little, what's the word?
Oh, you hear a Prax robot? That's not good.
No. Let me see. You're a little, what's the word? Scratchy. Prax robot.
Okay, is that better or worse?
No, I'm still hearing you, robot-y. Why?
Yeah, the problem. There we go. That's better.
Say again?
Is that better now?
No, I'm getting AI. Why?
Nope.
Yeah,
what the heck is going on?
It's because you're our overlord.
I'm gonna rejoin you 2 seconds.
All right. We're gonna get this, and it's gonna be awesome. Prax? I think Prax.
Is that better?
It was better, but it's still a little iffy. You know what I'm gonna do? How about
this
this?
better?
Say again.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Better.
Is this better?
It is. I'm still getting a little bit of, gosh darn it, Discord. Here, I'm gonna tell you what. Give me a second.
You.
Oh,
What's going on?
here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to I'm gonna just drop you a Zoom link because Zoom never gives me trouble. And if I drop you a Zoom link, I will just get the audio through, and then it'll be perfect. Let me see. Give me a second. Give me one moment. See, now I'm just thinking about a song. All right. I'm looking for my Zoom. Broom closet. That's the file. The broom closet's the file where I have my Zoom. Okay. Prax, in the Discord, I'm going to start you a a message. And join with computer audio. Let me start my video. Let me put this, I suppose, over here. And enable the waiting room. Okay, Prax, I'm sending you the link right now. And while we're here, let me just check this one thing because... oh, yeah. Prax, I'm going to say this is up to you if you would like to be visible or invisible, because I can give you either one. They both work for me. You can either be physically visible on the chat screen with us or not. It's up to you.
Give me 2 seconds because my screen just there we go.
Y'all, this is what happens when you hang out with us. This is what happens in a trooper stream. It happens all the time.
Give me 10 seconds because I need to fix my white balance.
That is fair.
And I can be visible if you want me to be visible.
Perfect.
I will be as visible as you want me to be.
And then I'm going to put you on our two chat screen because I want to hear what you have to say. OBS, and I just need to find...
I'm sorry I'm distracting Trooper from playing video games.
I feel like Krellin is all about it, so I think it's fine. Let me move this here so I can see... Oh, this is where I'll put this. I'll put the chat right there so I can see it. Perfect. And then I'll put you right here. All right, so tell me...
All you see is books and things.
Books are lovely.
All right.
All right. Are you good?
I'm fine.
Perfect.
I'm fine.
And then I'm going to knock your volume up just a little bit so that we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay. That works. I was like, my sound shouldn't be horrible because it shows the same settings as it always is.
Yeah, except that I tend to have the volume low because for game volume.
No, I meant for Discord. I have no idea what Discord is doing.
Oh, I see. All right, and yes, let me just come over here for a moment. Wow! Hey, everybody!
Hello.
It's Prax. It's Prax. Over there. No, this way. This way. Hey, Prax, how are you? So
I am well. Hello.
Hi. So here's the thing. By the way, while we're here, I'm just going to, since we're just here for the moment, not a big deal. I'm just going to change this to just chatting for the second, and we'll go back to the Outer Worlds when we play it. But just for the moment.
Yeah. Yes.
We're gonna just chat.
Thank you for that wonderful compliment, Krellin. I will take that compliment and claim to be a smart lady who knows things. Other people have said it, therefore it's officially true. I didn't just say it. It wasn't just me. So you went to a bar named Heretic for their country western night.
Because they have one every Thursday.
Because they do. But you need to know a few things about Atlanta that I don't think you've officially learned living in Atlanta for only 6 months.
I'm certain that's true.
And I mean, technically I'm not Lindy. I'm only Prax, but it's fine.
You've been around.
We're here. It's all good. So the place this bar is, the minute you said that this bar was on Cheshire Bridge Road, I knew exactly what your problem was going to be.
Okay.
So Cheshire Bridge Road runs parallel to I-85 north-south.
Okay.
And there's a junction.
Wait. Sorry. For people who don't live in Atlanta, or who've only lived in Atlanta for a short amount of time, this is what I've learned, and I'm going to say what I've learned as an outsider so that Prax can share information.
Yep.
So Atlanta's a city. I learned recently that it's actually not that big. It only has 500 and something thousand people in Atlanta itself. And then, of course, the metro area is actually millions of people, but like in what counts as the city.
That's not actually true. What you're talking about is within downtown. Because what people forget is the Atlanta city limits have expanded and have incorporated things that people think of as separate towns, but they're not really towns because they've all been absorbed. Like Briarcliff is officially, Briarcliff is technically its own town.
I will say that I Googled, I'm like, what's the population of Atlanta? And they're like, it's 500 and something thousand. I was like, oh, that's kind of small. But then anyway, so the point is.
Yeah, the point is, Atlanta.
Right. So here are these things that I've learned, and Pratt can will laugh. All right. So there's Atlanta, and there's a thing that I learned. It's called the perimeter, and you are either inside the perimeter or outside the perimeter. So Atlanta has this ring this highway ring. It's like a little circle, and there's
And
a freeway that goes north-south and one that goes east-west, like the big ones. And the east-west one is the 20, right? And then the north-south one is like the 75-85, I think.
well, technically, so east-west is I-20, and I-75 comes down from Tennessee, and I-85 comes down from North Carolina, and they meet in just north of the city limits of Atlanta, but still within the perimeter, because both of them actually come all the way really far down into the perimeter before they join. They join in Brookhaven. Well, no, they join in Briarcliff, and then Brookhaven's further north. And they go down to just about to the airport, and then they split again. And 75 goes south to Florida, and it goes to Orlando, and 85 goes south and west into Alabama.
Oh, so what I've learned is that there's like a thing about whether or not you live ITP in the perimeter or OTP out of the perimeter. I don't know all the politics of that, but I do know that that's a thing, and that I also know that Atlanta has.
I can give you the easiest reason about part of that politics.
What is the politics of that?
If you're ITP, you're within MARTA. MARTA does not. There is officially one station that goes OTP.
Oh.
That is the North Springs station on the Red Line, and that is the end of the line.
So the other thing I was going to say, you transition to it, is about MARTA. So Atlanta has this public transportation called MARTA.
No, it doesn't. It has something that pretends to be public transportation.
It has a thing that pretends to be public transportation that's called MARTA. And my understanding is that MARTA also only goes like that. So like it's like it does this and it does that, but you can't get really anywhere else on it.
Nope, you can't. You can go in if you are, and that's part of the problem is like, okay, for example, like I lived in New York, I lived in DC, I've lived, we have cousins who lived in Boston, so I've been to all of these places that have real public transportation. But here's the thing, Krillin, when you say like most public American cities, no, because like New York, you have different lines, and you can go to Brooklyn or Queens or different places in whatever.
And as a kid in San Francisco, I actually went all sorts of places. Like the Bay Area, like the bus system is pretty good in San Francisco, and then you can take the BART to all sorts of other places. Like I commuted using public transportation almost exclusively because my parents didn't actually have a car until much later, so that was pretty decent. Boston has pretty decent public transportation as well. New York, of course, is good public transportation. LA's transportation.
DC screws you because it makes you pay by the distance of how far you go rather than just a flat fee for that. No, that pisses me off. And
LA MARTA, I found was complicated.
Metro Atlanta.
Right, because some parts of LA were really, really good, but then other parts were not, right? Like you could get from like A to B really well and B to C really well, but then there's a mountain range, so B to C doesn't, like A to C doesn't happen, right? So it was like,
Yeah, and DC's got the red line where it goes in and turns around because it can't continue under the Capitol building. It's got a lot of problems. MARTA literally there are 4 lines, but there are really only 2. There's the red line that goes up along 400 to North Springs, which is just beyond the perimeter and is in what's the name of the stupid little area that's right there? It's not Doraville, it's
Yeah, I love everybody here. I just want to share that. I just everybody here. I just want you all to know it.
And anyways, so it's where the North Springs line ends is okay. So this kind of tells you what North Springs line is. Everything north of that is I-400, or not I-400. It's State Road 400. It's 4 lanes in either direction, all the way out to Forsyth County.
Oh, okay.
And
Forsyth County is the county that got rid of all its black people in the 60s.
No, in the 30s.
In the 30s. I mean,
in the 30s, and then kept it for up until the 1990s when a couple of people moved in. It was a really big deal. It's still a really, really, really okay. Look, Forsyth County is also the corporate headquarters of the KKK.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, speaking of white supremacy, fun fact, Southern California, Orange County is basically the headquarters of the white supremacist music industry. Uh,
All those fun things. So I 400, and it's like 15 miles from the perimeter up to Forsyth County of I-400. And it used to be that there was a toll station, and it was up until about 3 years before I left Atlanta. So 2017, 2016, there was a toll station right at where I-400 and 285, which is the perimeter. And it literally, the perimeter will literally, you can go all the way around it. And my roommate, when I was in college, if she couldn't sleep for one night or whatever, she would literally just get on the perimeter and go in circles. Okay, fine. But where 400 and 285 met, there was a toll booth specifically to get all of the rich people who lived in the northern Fulton County, Forsyth County, Milton County area because they didn't want to have the MARTA continue north into. There is no commuter rail system in Atlanta. And like if you live in New York or Boston or even DC, there's a commuter rail that goes out into the richer suburbs, and the people who work in white collar industries take it every day and they go in and out. The reason that they put the toll there is because the people in those northern counties didn't want to have.
I find that really fascinating because the politics of where you put public transportation is always fascinating, right? So in Los Angeles, there's like a really good commuter rail, but right, like it's really, really good, but it doesn't go through Beverly Hills, right? Like it would make sense for it to go all the way to the coast, to Santa Monica, so that people could take it all the way to UCLA or all those places, but it stops before you get to Beverly Hills. And there's been a lot of debate about why that is. And people are like, it's just because people in Beverly Hills do not want poor people traveling through their town. And Beverly Hills is its own city, so it can just say no. But those poor people include their maids and like the people and their gardeners. So it's a little bit tricky because they want those people to come there, but you cannot park there when you get into that area. But I heard that it wasn't about that at all, and I don't know how true that is. It's that below the La Brea tar pits, there are gas pockets, and so it's not safe to run the underground, like the underground commuter rail. But you could just have it go above ground. Anyway, the point is that you cannot, and also that's where the airport is, right? So basically, there's not a really good way to get to the airport on the commuter rail, even though everybody wants it, like except for people in Beverly Hills who are like, nah. And they're their own city, right? Because the rich people,
they have their own city, and therefore they can't do it. I mean, like, so that's the thing with MARTA. You can go, and you can go from, and where I lived on the end line of the Gold Line, which is Doraville, and technically I lived OTP, but it was like literally a half-mile OTP, so it didn't really count. I was on the perimeter. But you can go from there, and you can go into downtown, and then you can go south and go all the way to the airport. That literally most people in Atlanta who are not working, who do not live OTP and do not work in downtown Atlanta, only use the airport to go only use the MARTA to go to the airport.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the other things that they have to remember is that MARTA closes at midnight.
Oh, that's interesting.
Except on Friday and Saturday when it closes at 3 a.m. And they purposely they shifted it to 3 a.m. because there are still counties where they shifted the hours of MARTA to 3 a.m. because the bars were closing at 3 a.m. And the bars actually closed before MARTA did, or the bars closed after MARTA did. MARTA closed before the bars.
So
and they were having like things.
So Krellin says, "Man, I want both of you to spend a couple days in Albuquerque without transportation." Oh, I will tell you, I've been in places that have bad public transportation.
I've been to Albuquerque.
And actually, Williamsburg has bad public transportation as well. Williamsburg, Virginia.
Yeah, but Williamsburg, I don't think really counts as its own city.
No, I think it's not really a city, right? It's
a town with a university attached.
Yes, and that's different. Like, I know a place is not going to be good for public transportation, et cetera, when they don't have sidewalks. for large
Yeah.
stretches of places. Do you know what I mean? When you're like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to walk safely in this place either.
Yeah, Courier's right. The DC public transportation will close at 1 a.m. on a Friday and a Saturday.
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes no sense.
San Francisco was the same. Like public transportation, like BART would close at like midnight, which is outrageous. But one thing I thought was actually just a slight observation about Atlanta, which I find really interesting and sort of maybe surprising perhaps, is Atlanta's kind of a late city, right? Like people go to clubs. I was like, oh, it's 11. I couldn't go to the club. People were like, oh, 11, sure, that's when things start. It's like, oh, okay. A lot of the cities,
you're not going. You're not going out until later.
Yeah.
Like the liquor stores aren't going to close until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. The bars are not closing until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Legitimately, MARTA would close before the bars, and they shifted the bar hours an extra hour to force MARTA to stay open an extra hour.
Wow.
Because that was the thing. Well, in certain counties and areas, because you have to remember that Atlanta actually spans 4 counties, and that's where things get
Which
really
is also pretty weird, right? Because you don't like. So we were having a whole conversation, Dot and I, about recycling, because the different counties recycle different things, but Atlanta's in all 4 of them, so you've got to figure out exactly what is recyclable, right? And
yeah, and then if you and just so if you, this is my pointing out of something else if you do not know, and if you don't know if your item is recyclable in the county or town or city portion of Atlanta that you are living in, you can always take it to the Atlanta DeKalb County International Farmers Market, because they have a recycling center on there, and pretty much they'll take everything that all of the counties and areas will take.
Yeah.
So if you can't do it, it'll figure it out.
What Jared just said, we're dealing with that in the Twin Cities. This about light rail. The main issue is how to widen roads without losing businesses. Luckily, we used to have trolleys, so those roads are already pretty wide, but those were historically white areas, and a lot of the black communities have narrow streets because of it. So historically, black neighborhoods are at risk of getting displaced. Yeah. I will note, just somebody asked about bicycle riding, and since I got my bicycle, I got a bike right in October, and the person I got the bike from, this shop, Earls or something rather, was like, hey, here are these sort of like websites that you should probably know about. And there seems to be a pretty strong bike riding community. I don't know like how, like I'm not comparing it to Europe, but like there seems to be like quite a bit of bike riding. And what's interesting is that there's the Beltline. But
there's a lot of bike riding in the area of Atlanta that you're in.
Yes, and I think that's probably not everywhere, but I noticed that there's like there's the belt, and I was talking to some other folks about this. April Reagan, some other people, and like it's kind of complicated because there's this kind of gentrification happening in Atlanta with the Beltline, and the Beltline, you know this better than I. It's like a green. I don't know if it's
okay. So the Beltline was an industrial rail line.
Okay, does it follow the perimeter?
It's being taken a lot around the perimeter and expanded in places around the perimeter, but the original line that it was based on, kind of came out along a portion of the perimeter and then kind of went further out in north. But they've taken it a lot of other places, and they're kind of picking it up with various other pieces. And so like each county has its own kind of belt line picking up, and now it's the belt line is one big thing.
But it's not connected yet. Like it's
not 100%. It's not 100% connected.
It's like a pathway. It's like a walkway that's surrounded by green, and you can like walk or bicycle or jog or whatever you want to do on it. And there's often like neat art on the sides. And wherever it is, like kind of hipster places kind of spring up around it very often is what I've noticed. But it doesn't connect all the way around. It's supposed to. It doesn't
connect all the way around. It's theoretically going to. The problem the problem that was always going to be there is that the financial reason to do it in West Atlanta isn't really there. And a lot of people in West Atlanta are kind of like, we have other issues rather than we don't need the Beltline. But the Beltline is, we're yuppie and white and want the.
But in a particular
Beltline.
kind of a way, it's not like ethnic white. It's a very hippie kind of thing. It's gentrified hippie. Yeah. Yes. It's not old hippie that like has no money. Sorry, I want to be specific. It's not that, right?
Hipsters.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's the word I want.
They're hipsters. And so this whole thing started because we're talking about this club that you went to.
Yes, which is not in my neighborhood. It's
in Cheshire Bridge. It's on Cheshire Bridge Road. So the reason I knew immediately why you were not going to A, feel comfortable, or B, act, well, you might have felt comfortable on a different night.
Maybe. But this one
or,
was like,
or,
I was like, it just wasn't
B,
country enough.
You weren't expecting what you got.
Yeah, yeah.
Is so you're on Cheshire Bridge Road. And this particular strip of roadway, and it's about 2.5 miles at most. And it connects Lenox Road and forget what's at the bottom. Doesn't matter. It joins back in with 75, and you basically come Piedmont, dead ends into Piedmont. It's like, what are the two ends? So Piedmont Park is
my chat over here.
The botanical gardens are there, but it's also the beginning of the very gay neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
historically gay neighborhoods.
There's a painting on the side, on the like little rainbows on the sidewalk.
Yes, the Atlanta Pride, which is in August and usually coincides just briefly with there's usually one that coincides with, aside from Pride Month, regular Pride, there's the one that occurs near Dragon Con. So there's a Dragon Con and Pride event that usually kind of things, but it's all out of Piedmont Park.
Wait, before you go on, can we just do an overview for everybody, also for me? So
yes.
If there you have Atlanta, you've got this perimeter, and you've got these, so you've got like 4 quadrants, right? So like 4 big quadrants?
Well, no, think of it. Okay, so
because I feel like, because you said West Atlanta, I was like, oh, I know West Atlanta is like traditionally a bit more of a Black neighborhood, right? Black and Latino.
We'll get there.
Oh, see, because I feel like there's an overview that we probably all need that you could tell me, because I feel like you know. And by the way, chat, I am expanding you so I can see you all of you beautiful chat folks. Which
all right, so this is my very rough drawing of what Atlanta looks like.
By the way, that looks like a symbol you'd find in a horror movie, like scrawled on the wall. Right, and you're like,
look, I'm not going to judge, but so the circle going around is the perimeter.
So you
coming in
6 zones.
Basically, you basically have 6-ish zones. This road that you're talking about runs right here. This little side on the east side here, right? And it runs north-south, and it's parallel to I-85. It's a little offset. It's like, technically there's an exit, and so it's maybe like a block and a half offset because there are a bunch of buildings in between, whatever, and there might be a couple of set, but it's about a block offset from I-85, or from the I-85. And at the bottom, it ends in Piedmont Park, which is is a very historically gay community, but it's also been was originally a very Black gay community. And
that was not what I saw.
This is I'm going to give you one thing. It was Piedmont Park was originally for Black male gay community. It has since transitioned to a very, very, very white lesbian community.
Oh, that's interesting. With money or without money?
Kind of half and half.
Okay.
More because you're living inside Atlanta. You're in close, but that is, and it's usually a lot of very big Black Pride events occur in Piedmont Park, and after, when gentrification really came in, and they started buying up land, because this particular area of Atlanta wasn't that great. It was served by Grady. Let's put it that way. Grady is the hospital that literally, I'm sorry, unless you are literally bleeding out and they can't fly you somewhere else, don't go to Grady.
Okay.
Like, Grady tries,
but they probably are underfunded
and they're an inner city hospital in a very high crime neighborhood. And they're also the public hospital in an inner city, very high crime neighborhood. Yeah. And you're just never going to get it. So the bottom of Cheshire Bridge is a very historical, changing gay community. Then you go up Cheshire Bridge, and at the top, there's, the beginning of gentrification. at the top of this. And there's a little bit of, but there's also a historical arts neighborhood there because that's where the Terra Cinema is, which is the art house cinema in Atlanta. And a Jewish, in a moderate Jewish population. But along that road of Cheshire Bridge Road is the historical and most important for Atlanta strip clubs.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
At the bottom near Piedmont, there are a lot of like interesting restaurants that kind of come in, and usually is kind of like a very foodie scene. What's his name? Who won one of the Master Chef?
Oh,
not Master Chef.
yeah.
What's the Bravo version with
with what's her face, right? Padma Lakshmi.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple episodes with that one. It was actually kind of cool. Top Chef.
Top Chef, yes. So he won Top Chef, and I actually went to his restaurant.
Was it good?
It was really good. It was it was a really kind of great kind of vibe. He eventually closed it because his dad said he felt uncomfortable going there. No, it was one of those. He was the guy who ran it was a self-proclaimed white redneck who made good and started doing a lot of very interesting fusion and fancy versions of Southern food.
That's cool.
And his dad just felt like, I feel uncomfortable walking through the door and ordering a beer in your restaurant. And he's like,
no.
So then he moved out to Tucker, and has a different restaurant out in Tucker that his dad feels more comfortable with. It's like, all right, you had your shot at a Michelin star, you made a lot of money on Top Chef, and now you've got a restaurant that you run and people feel more comfortable at. I don't care. But Cheshire Bridge Road, at the bottom, you have those restaurants that are going to be kind of experimental and funky and hipster and all of these kind of things. But the rest of it is strip clubs and stripper, and where that hipster, looking at the map, and where that particular hipster restaurant, strip club is, or not strip club, club that you went to is,
it's not a
bar. Across the street, it's Taqueria del Sol, which really good tacos, by the way.
I should
definitely want to go there. A lot of the girls who work at the strip clubs go there after 4 hours. That kind of tells you the kind of vibe you're going to get.
Yeah. I love good tacos.
And
like
they
a
would
cool
have
vibe.
they have very good tacos. And next door to the place that you were looking at is I didn't check recently because COVID has happened, so things may have been closed, was the supply store for the strippers.
Oh, okay. Places where you'll get like very cheap lingerie and heels with acrylic,
or really great stripper heels. Like no, these aren't like cheap, like not like
this is like
Love
good
Shack
stuff.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, these are where the dancers are going to buy stuff, because this is like, and these are like, now I may have known a few people who bought stuff there because they're really great and really well made, and they're dance shoes, and you can have a 6-inch heel on a 4-inch platform and
it'll work, right? Yeah.
And it'll work.
I'm always, by the way,
yes, great cosplay materials, Shadair.
And by the way, Krellin, you're correct about the banjo. You're absolutely, like, you are correct. Krellin knows exactly what's going to happen. Krellin is psychic.
Look, but so this is a bar that I would have bet. The reason a lot of people feel uncomfortable doing Western there is because it doesn't meet the vibe of what they in their mind think is country Western, because they think that country Western is somehow going to be antithetical to either the very large gay community that comes up and down the strip, or the dancer hipster vibe, the strip club vibe, that you're going to get. And so there's a lot of self-judgment in that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people who are going to be like, oh wait, they're finally going to do a dance night for this.
Yeah. And
so this is what I was going to say, but I didn't feel comfortable that it felt like typing out would be awkward. So on one hand, people were, and I definitely saying, yeah, it's welcoming because they're going to have instructors. But the reality was they probably have had these nights. They claim they have these nights. You say they have these nights once a week?
Yeah, every Thursday. Yeah.
I guarantee you were the maybe one of 10 the entire year who were new people who actually wanted to do this.
Yeah, that's probably true. I got that vibe.
And it's not so much that they have stopped so it's gotten to the point where it's like, we
Hey,
open to this, and we're here and welcoming, but no one ever actually wants to come. So we're going to just have fun and be like, because at a certain point, it's like, you do these introductory level nights, and I've done them. You do the introductory level nights and you never get beyond the introductory level.
Yes,
stuff.
that's right. Yep.
And so they're like, okay, well, if we only get one night a week, can we get to do stuff that we don't get to do? Because and so you've got these people who are self-hating because they think that they're gay and hipster and all of these enlightened things, and we shouldn't be doing country music. And combined with, I was like, I'm sorry, I could have recommended a better place for you.
Yeah, because I just saw, I was like, oh, I got a little Google. I was like, oh, there's a dance night, I'll go. And what's really interesting is because, so like, in my experience, right, there are two different types of gay country bars, in my experience. There are gay country bars that are just gay country bars, and they're always gay country bars, right? And
and there are two of them that I can think of off the top of my head in Atlanta.
You should tell me where they are so I can go before I leave. And I find those kind of gay country bars are usually very chill, right? People usually dance. They often don't have instructors, or sometimes they might, but the instructors are very often, if they do have instructors, are people from the bar, if that makes any sense. Like people who are regulars.
Yeah, the regulars at the bar who aren't really necessarily paid to be there. They're just showing up and being like, oh wait, we get kind of used to instructing people, and we're gonna do this. And
they'll have that instruction, but like it's a different vibe, right? Because they're not professional dance instructors, if that makes any sense. They're like, they're there. And then what Prax is saying, you effed up their nights. I'm so sorry.
I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that just the environment has trained them to a point that they
And and the people in the country bar, in my experience, in like a country bar, whether it's a gay country bar or not, tend to not dance other dances as often. Like they don't also dance salsa and also dance Lindy and also dance Balboa. They tend to go to country bars to like country bars, and then they dance when they're there, or they don't. And then the other one is, it's this gay country bar, which also happens in non-gay bars, right? Like you can see it in both. And it's the place that is not normally a country bar. It's normally a regular sort of nightclub. And then there is a country night, but that country night is often advertised, if they're going to be more honest, which they are not always, as a country line dancing night, right? And that is a place that is usually like, they're not going to put sawdust on the floor, right? Because that's going to mess up the next night. And they usually have instructors who are professional instructors who are not exclusively country and Western dance instructors. They're also often ballroom dance instructors. They also do other...
they're trained in a more breadth of things.
Yes. So
Jer's comment is actually not wrong. They're like going to church for the first time, welcoming, but they forgot you might not know all the prayers. I mean, not wrong, and actually rather appropriate, because one of the places I was going to say is, if you really just want to go out, there's the Unitarian Universalist Church does a dance night.
Oh, nice.
They used to. So I don't know. COVID has changed things.
Yeah, COVID has changed a lot of things. And it's also interesting, side note, that to get into Heretic, you have to show your Vax card. And I thought not just a mask, but also a Vax card, which I thought was interesting.
That's because Cheshire is in, technically, half of Cheshire Bridge Road is in Fulton County, half of Cheshire Bridge Road is in DeKalb County.
Something I thought was really interesting about, and so back in the 90s, I was talking to my friend David about this. Back in the 90s, I would say, because I joined the Army in 1990. Now, please note that I was listening to country music before the 90s, but I started really listening to it a lot again. Like I was listening to country a lot in the 70s, and then I kind of skipped the 80s for the most part, and then I sort of hit up again in the 90s. There was like my 70s was a lot of Dolly and Kenny Rogers and Willie Nelson and And then you chop to the 90s, and you've got the class of '88 with Alan Jackson, Reba McEntire, George Strait, Garth Brooks.
George Strait is older.
But he had a big hit in '88, right? So I think they kind of lumped
everybody
him in.
has a big. They have a big hit, but he's not part of the class of '88.
Yeah. Just like Reba's a little bit earlier. Like the Judds are earlier because they're like basically.
Judds are earlier, not Reba.
No,
Reba's first album comes out that year.
Yeah, so there's that whole class of '88, and so I was coming in because I joined the Army in 1990, so I'm getting the but Achy Breaky Heart comes out in like 92, right? So there's like
yeah, and
yeah,
like Fancy comes
yeah.
Fancy is on Reba's album that comes out in 90, 91. Um
Great album.
because the single that comes out first in the class of 88 is the what is it? It's the
Ice Bunny, she was a huge singer. Reba McEntire is a singer first and like a really important singer in country music.
Oh, wait. Can I'm gonna post
Please.
it in the chat because
Please.
okay, so Reba McEntire is a fabulous singer.
Yeah.
And
really good. And very important, I think.
And she has, and if you a brand new music video as of 2 months ago.
Ooh. Oh, is it the one with Dolly?
It's the one with Dolly.
Oh, so good. So good. Her music videos are so good, though. Like,
they are.
The music video for Does She Love Me?
Yeah, so she released a cover of one of her own songs, Does He Love You?
Yeah,
with Dolly Parton.
Yeah,
and it's all about like the wife and the mistress being like,
so good.
but does he love you? Like, and in the original music video, they film it like a Hollywood 1930s Hollywood
so good
war, and then there's a whole murder plot at the end. Yes. And then they pull back and it's like, oh no, this is just a film we're doing.
There are explosions. Like, I just
it's like, no, it's fabulous.
It is fabulous. It is so good. Hey, Max Ryder. Yes. So what I thought was really interesting is that, and I remember this being a complaint that people had, and I didn't quite get it, and then I sort of got it, and it was that, and of course this happened in the 70s too, right? There are these moments where line dancing becomes really, really popular, and a lot of people who are not normally going to country bars get really excited about line dancing, and they line dance. Like there was like a big, like around Urban Cowboy, a big moment in the 90s, it sort of happened like starting like from 92 onward. And what's interesting about those line dances or the people that are really interested in those line dances, that the line dances that become part of that popularity are usually very complicated line dances that take up a lot of space on the dance floor, which means they end up pushing out people who are wanting to two-step or waltz. And they are not particularly friendly to beginners, and they're not necessarily particularly friendly to the people who had been there the whole time who know line dances, but they're not doing those, right? Like, and I remember in 91, there was always like one kind of new complicated line dance, right? But if you're at a night, your ratio of line dancing, like of two-stepping or waltzing to line dancing is going to be something like 80% not line dancing, 20% line dancing. But when the line dancing gets really popular, especially in places that are not regularly country bars, you end up getting like 80% line dancing and 20% two-stepping or waltzing or the other things. And it's a very different ratio, and it gives a very different feel, right, to the space. Yeah.
And I think, and here's the thing, if you don't know a city, and you can live in a city for years and not necessarily know it. Absolutely. Or know everything about every city. Like, I freely acknowledge there are large chunks of West Atlanta that I know almost zero about. And part of that is because, unfortunately, West Atlanta is a very Black, economically struggling area that is overwhelmed by gangs and gang violence in an extremely bad way. It's my extent in time spent there was usually at Restoration Atlanta, which this is me giving a shout out, hashtag totally not sponsored, but Restoration Atlanta is a women's rescue shelter women and children's rescue shelter in Atlanta, in West Atlanta, that they literally took over a factory area and like 4 warehouses, and have retrofitted it and work with people, either, get them jobs if they're, it's a very large scale. And they even have a whole section that's dedicated to rescuing women from sex trafficking. And they do a lot of really great work. But this is a shelter that is a women and children's shelter that's part of within the city limits of Atlanta, 10 minutes from Georgia Tech with traffic.
Mm-hmm.
That literally has to have barbed wire around the entire thing and a fully manned gate at 24/7 because they're just, it's not safe.
Yeah.
Within their compound is safe,
Yeah.
but not within outside it. And it's unfortunate, but
So one of the things I'm interested in cities, right? And actually small towns. I'm interested in locations, right? Like and how locations, what they manifest and how people talk about them, what they think about them. And what, as I've been sort of working on training for this bikepacking trip I did, I've been doing a lot of like bike rides, and I just use this app Strava, which you can be like, I want a 10-mile ride that starts where I'm at, and they'll just like take you on a space. And so I've been doing all these sort of like big loops, and
out of curiosity, did it ever take you to the other side of I-75? Well, no, where you are in 5 Points. Did it ever take you across the other side of the downtown Atlanta?
Yes.
Did it take you to IKEA?
I don't know if it took me to IKEA, but I've done these kind of like weirdly massive loops, and very often what happens is it'll take me south, and then south and west and around. There's one loop that actually gets me into downtown, which is actually kind of fun. Because I actually really enjoy, me personally, I actually enjoy driving through downtown because I actually like seeing what it looks like. It's like a different...
Yeah, downtown Atlanta is very interesting. You don't spend a lot of... It's a lot of interesting. But I'm
like
betting it didn't take you...
that I go through.
But I'm betting it didn't take you all the way over to the west side.
I don't know how far... Actually, I can tell you how far I have gone because I've got my little phone here. But it's interesting to me, what I was going to say, it's interesting to me to see... what the place, first off, I'll say a lot of Atlanta feels very not big city to me, right? Like in terms of like, there are not a lot of really tall buildings until you get to actual downtown. There are not a lot of really tall buildings.
Until you get to the 75, the canyon and the Grady Curve, which is basically, so the canyon and the Grady Curve is literally when 75 and 85 come together and became a connector through downtown. And they're like, well, we want everybody to be, they start on like the west side of downtown, and then they cut through downtown and put you on the east side of downtown and the Capitol building.
Okay, so my 15-mile ride, I can tell the neighborhoods. I stop in little 5 Points where I'm at, and then it takes me sort of south and west through Inman Park.
Yep.
Across, then I go to Cabbagetown. Go to Cabbagetown quite a lot. They send me there. Oakland Cemetery, Grant Park. Park. And then I'm in Summerhill. So I'm heading west, Summerhill. And then I head south when I hit Mechanicsville.
Yep.
And then I head west again through Pittsburgh. And then I start, once I hit the end of Pittsburgh, I head north, and I'm passing by the Atlanta University Center, south, and then I go through South Downtown, the Hotel District. I go up to, what is this?
So basically what you're doing
Piedmont
is
Park.
you went down to I-20. You basically go down to I-20, go across, basically going down across I-20. And when you hit downtown, you go back north. You don't get to the other side of downtown Atlanta, which means you haven't made it to West Atlanta.
Okay. Well then wait, let me see this one, because now this is very interesting. I want to look at like my longest route is like a...
Now admittedly, where you are in Atlanta, I'd be kind of surprised because it would be you'd either have the loop would be a little bit long if you went too far.
Yeah.
But
okay, so I have this 20-mile ride, and it looks like same thing, that I get to basically the end of Mechanicsville before I get to West End, and then I head north, and then I just go really, really, really far north.
You get to the West End. You haven't crossed. You don't cross 75-85.
Now I do on the north side.
But once you're north, but not south of not.
Well, let me see. I do with Mechanicsville. You cross the 75-85, right? So that happens.
Yeah,
there.
but not really.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I cross it up at, like, what is this? A Brookwood, up north.
Yeah, Brookwood.
Yeah, up
Brookwood
there.
Brookwood is entirely different.
Yeah.
You don't go to places like H.E. Holmes.
Yeah.
You don't go out to the green line or out the west side of the blue line.
So we're
At
looking at like what, Cascade Heights? Is that what we're looking at, or
Yeah, what is the
East Point?
East Point? No, not East Point. Well, yeah, a little bit of East Point, but
So interesting to me.
that's the
Yeah, so like when I look at the little map, I don't know if I can. Maybe I can show you. So y'all, I don't know if you can see this well. So here's a map, right, of my 20-mile route, and the little blue point is.
Yeah, you're avoiding a big section of. Yeah, I know exactly where you're avoiding.
So like the blue dot is where I'm at, and a little bit south of me is the 20, that sort of east-west highway that she talked about, that Prax talked about, and right, and then where that, you see that there's like a little red, sorry, there's a little red dip in my map, there at the top, which I think is about where her little dip is, and so it looks like I just basically don't really go very far west on this, or very far south on this map at all. Mostly it's all kind of in that northern part quadrant.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Interesting.
Because here
in Ice Bunny, you can get the lingonberries and also the Swedish meatballs at the IKEA in the United States.
You don't go out to Westlake, you don't go out to East Point is south. So basically what you're doing is you're going down, and East Point is a
and I never get that far. Like I never get as far as
you're never going to get as far as East Point. You're never, because then you're getting down to Lakewood, Fort McPherson, and College Park, and then down to the airport. That's like really far down. But like you don't go over to Bankhead or Ashby or Westlake or H.E. Holmes. Bunches of areas which are really I don't know. You might qualify as Black enough. I don't.
Maybe. Depends. Right? Just depends.
Depends on who it is at what time of day. But yeah, so there's a lot of nuance and areas and locations that you can go to and do things and be like, okay, but you know.
Can I ask you a question about Atlanta?
Yes.
I'm gonna give a description of what it looks like to me in the places that I've been. And I understand that this description might be triggering and inaccurate, but I hope I can get the sense of it. Not where I'm at right now, because where I'm at right now is particularly funky. Little Five Points has got like little funky shops and all that stuff, right? But when I'm taking my rides, it looks to me, I know it is not suburban. And what I mean by that is like, not like,
no, you're not wrong. And here's what you have to understand.
Like, not like cookie cutter, like.
Well, no, but there's some of that even.
Oh.
But you have to remember that a lot of what counts is inside the perimeter and even inside Metro Atlanta, like Briarcliff or Decatur or Brookhaven or portions of Doraville or, you know, even portions of like Eastlake and Lakewood and where you're talking about. Those were all individual small towns.
Yes, it feels like that.
That were absorbed, or because remember, Decatur is the county seat for DeKalb County, and DeKalb County is now half of DeKalb County is now in what counts as in Atlanta and Fulton County. So if you go through the perimeter, you can go from Fulton County to the city of Atlanta, which is technically not part of, well, is this also the city county seat for Fulton County, but it's also the capital, and it's also the city, which is separate than Fulton County. So like you can drive down a road and there will be a sign that says leaving DeKalb County, and you're entering the full section of Atlanta. You drive a couple miles down, you leave Atlanta, and now the sign says you've entered Fulton County, unincorporated Fulton County. So like these bunches of areas, particularly like where I lived in Decatur when I was going to school, is a bunch of suburban, not quite Levitt towns, but almost, that were post-war built bungalows.
Yeah.
They're all brick
Yep.
and or clapboard bungalows that are post-war built, the 2-3 bedroom houses that were built for guys on the GI Bill, and expanding outward, or they're craftsmen 1930s, 1920s, 1930s craftsmen, and sometimes a little bit of Korean and Victorians that have been modernized. But there were all these small towns that have been absorbed into what we call Atlanta.
Okay, so I would like to ask also people in the chat this question because I'm sort of interested in this. So I grew up in San Francisco, which is a city which is on a peninsula, which cannot expand, right? Because there's no land for it to expand to. And it is also its own county, right? San Francisco city and county are the exact same space, and it cannot get any bigger than that. And then you have all the places around it. And then Los Angeles is one massive, huge county where people that I suppose has expanded out, although it might have always just, Los Angeles might have always just had a lot of spaces, but then people have left Los Angeles City, right? Like people have voted to leave. Like Beverly Hills is like, no, we're not Los Angeles anymore. And the poorer places try to vote to leave, and Los Angeles is like, no, you can't leave. So North Hollywood wanted to leave, but then it couldn't. Hollywood is actually part of Los Angeles. North Hollywood is part of Los Angeles. I think Westwood isn't. I think Westwood is its own city, and it's super small. Beverly Hills is so Los Angeles, like a big county with a big city, but then places have left it when they were too rich. And then Atlanta seems so totally different that it's like 4 different counties in this one city. So like that seems like very different, right?
So you have to. It gets more complicated.
Oh, you're right, Max. Thank you.
It gets more complicated when you understand the history of Fulton County. And the current, and if you watch the news, the current fights that are going on in Fulton County. So, rewind the clock back to 30s, 40s, and 50s. Maybe a little bit early in the 20s, but mostly 30s, 40s, and 50s, the beginning of the Depression into the war era and post-war era. Fulton County was the money county because it was the city. And then what we now call Northern Fulton County was its own county called Milton County, which was poor as fuck because it was a bunch of farmers. And you had...
See you, Max.
Bye, Max. And so you had mostly small family farms. These are not large plantations. These are not large money plantations or anything like that.
I'm gonna go fix this name. Go, please speak while I fix your name.
Okay. Small family, maybe 20, 30 acres, at most 100 acres farms, family farms. Occasionally there were sharecroppers, but they were black sharecroppers and white sharecroppers who were all existing on the same farmland. Now, that is not to say that there was racial equality in any way, shape, or form, but it's not
it's different.
It's a very different reliance.
I mean, it's just different, right? I mean, like it's
just different.
Sharecroppers, that's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. No, don't worry about it. I don't worry, Max. I'm your friendly neighbor Prax, and Trooper just didn't. Yeah. Now it's just hidden behind your cup.
It's there. We're good.
Yeah, it's there. Cool. So in the 50s, when Atlanta is now booming, there's a large post-war boom and things are happening. Fulton County absorbs Milton County because Milton County can't actually sorry, Geek, I'm not Lindy. So Milton County can't actually financially run itself. It's so poor at this point. So Fulton County absorbs it. Fast forward to recent times, as in the last 10, 15, almost 20 years. What was Milton County is now white, suburban, white collar, a large number of tech firms, a bunch of hospital kind of industry, lawyers, all those things. Look, there's a Ferrari dealership out in what was off of in that section of North Fulton County, which was Milton.
I want to say this thing. I think this is interesting. I live in the Boston area right now, and I know that there are counties, but nobody ever talks about them.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean the same thing.
Yeah, right. So I think it's interesting that clearly counties mean something different, right? Because nobody talks about they're like, just what town are you in? Right?
But it's also like, because particularly up here, and like I live in Connecticut, right? We got rid of the counting system. We talk about the existence of counties, but we got rid of the counting system in the 80s, 70s, 80s.
It
doesn't actually. Connecticut has no counties. It's like, I live in Fairfield County, but it doesn't mean anything. We still have a sheriff of Fairfield County, but it doesn't mean anything because each of the little towns has its own function and all of those things. Georgia, it still means something. Like, you have people that live in unincorporated Fulton County or unincorporated Forsyth County. They need county services to survive, running all these things. So right now what's happening is all of the rich, mostly white, although there is a massive growing population of Southeast Asian rich folk, and a couple rich Black families, but by mostly it's white and Southeast Asian. And there's a very big dividing line between the Punjabi and the Hindi. And that's a whole separate thing. But in northern Fulton County, keep trying to vote to separate out again Milton County from Fulton County, because Fulton County is now inner city Atlanta. They aren't making, and the property taxes from North Fulton County are paying for everything in South Fulton County.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, wait, what? And on one hand, some of it's probably economically classist motivated. But on the other hand, because of the way the population density is split versus the way the land property tax is split, South Fulton County has a higher population density. So theoretically, they have a higher number of votes on the county. It's for the running of the county. It's the
San Francisco, Los Angeles problem, right? That, like, when it comes to state senate, like, Southern California outvotes Northern California because of population.
And so it's a Southern population. The Southern Fulton County population has a higher representation on the county board. But they make up, I think the number, when I was living in Atlanta this was like 3 years ago now, I don't know what the current number is, but the property taxes in Southern Fulton County make up 10% of the budget of Fulton County as a whole.
So somebody said a thing recently that I hadn't really thought about, but I was
think it's like 20%, sorry.
But I was like, oh, this is interesting. We were talking about like people moving to suburbs and like money moving to the suburbs. Of course, now it's like reversing because money wants to move back into the cities now.
Depending on where you are.
Depending on where you are. And because, there are all these like little like urban planning details that sometimes you don't think about and sometimes you do. And somebody said that one of the problems with people moving, like rich people moving to the suburbs, was that they still lived in the city, which meant that they used the they used the resources, right? They used the roads, and they used a lot of the resources of the city itself, but they didn't pay any money into the city because now they were living outside of the city, which put more pressure on the city itself, which had lost a lot of its tax base. They lost all that income, but that they still had people coming in to use their resources. And I hadn't really thought it, like, it's one of those like little things that you don't think about, like, oh, if you're driving in right into the city and you're working there and you're doing all your stuff there, you actually are utilizing, right, some of the
and that's where things get really complicated, because then you have things like, okay, well, there's a difference between property taxes and income taxes, which by the way, it gets really complicated. I can't wait for you to try and do your Georgia state income tax.
That's why I go to H&R Block and have them do it for me.
You're probably going to be okay because it's not going to be that big a number, but
yes,
the counties also take an income tax depending on what county you're in.
Oh.
And there's a city and county variation in sales tax. No, Connecticut has an income tax.
No, it's New Hampshire, right? That doesn't?
Yeah. Robot tech. We have an income tax. We didn't used to, and
Oh.
that's why what happened. The tradition of why you have so many rich folk who live in Greenwich is because they would take the train. They were the rich people who worked on Wall Street or the white Schuler, whatever, color people who worked in New York and would take the train and be like, oh, we can move out cross the border into Greenwich and Stamford and Darien in Lower Fairfield County and avoid income tax. We have had an income tax in Connecticut since they got rid of the tolls on I-95. That was our deal. We also have a massively obscene gas tax that's also county delineated. Like if I go between the price for gas, and this is purely the gas tax, is between Stamford and New Haven is 30 cents a gallon.
Oh, wow.
Okay. There's no reason for that.
Okay, so here's the thing I think is super interesting right now, because we're talking at this moment, some of the things I think we're sort of hitting on is like the economic, but also not just economic, complications when you're living on a model where each city or each county or each state is economically separate, and like I'm moving from point A to point B, but all of my economics are based on point A, right? And so, but I'm using point B, and like all those things I think is really interesting.
And so like that's the thing is like Atlanta has an income tax, has sales tax, and by the way, I still, after not living there and not working in retail there for almost 10 years, I can still tell you where the county line and where the city lines are, because if you cross the county, so here's the thing. If you look at your receipt in Atlanta, you will have the sales tax for the county you're in. You'll also probably have the sales tax for the city that you're in.
Huh.
So for example, in Atlanta, in Decatur, which is the county seat for DeKalb County, you have DeKalb County sales tax, which is 6% sales tax. And then if you're inside Decatur limits itself, you also get the Decatur city sales tax, which is an additional 3% sales tax. And those are at the bottom.
So this is something I thought was really interesting when I lived in Germany. I thought this was fascinating, right? So I lived in Germany from 1992 to 1997, which was like a time when like the EU was like sort of like growing in certain ways, right? In terms of like
and not in sorry.
It was like growing in sort of certain ways, and there was like a lot of the economic stuff was happening and monetary stuff. But what was really fascinating is they did this thing that happened, and like, so I'm an American, right? Which meant that I was dealing with certain sort of things as a result of these sort of coordinations, which I wasn't mad about. It worked out in the end. But like, so for example, you had to hire an EU person before you hired an outside of EU person if you could, right? So
yeah,
a lot of jobs that were going for English speakers were like, the requirement is you need a native English speaker. They would go to people who were English before they would go to Americans, and not just Americans, right? There was a bunch of us who were Australians, Americans, people who were just not from the EU. But the language school that I taught at said that they needed people of different accents in order to teach English effectively, so I could get a job, which was cool. But they did this thing. This thing happened, and I thought it was such a fascinating thing, and I still think about it to this day. So this was like in the early 90s, and that was that if you were an EU citizen, you were allowed to vote in the city elections of the country you lived in, even if you were not a citizen from that country, but you could not vote on any higher level than city level elections. With the idea being that if you live in that city, those politics impact and affect you, so you should be allowed to vote in that city, but anything above that level, you couldn't, right? So I had a colleague of mine who was, she was an American, but she was Italian-American, and Italy and Ireland would let you get citizenship if you could prove...
Yep, it's the 3-generation rule.
The 3-generation rule.
You can still get that.
And so she got Italian citizenship so she could get EU citizenship. So her life was much easier. And she was able to vote in the city elections. And I actually thought that was kind of cool, right? Because those city elections are pretty, like, do you want like a big parking garage here in this spot or not, right? Like a lot of those things seemed kind of cool to be able to vote in a local election. I know some people don't care about local elections, but like it seemed cool.
Oh no, local elections are very important.
Yes, they are.
Now, I'm going to preface this statement by saying I know it is an unpopular opinion. Okay. I'm going to preface this statement by also saying that I have come to this opinion after living in Atlanta for 10 years and having to deal with county and city politics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this is what my very important point is. I do not disagree with the importance of having some proof of residency to vote. What that proof of residency is can be debated.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
You know, if we can get to the point where we can just bring our freaking power bill, I'd be okay with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But what I do not, but given the amount of, so like if you were in it, like a year you had to go, you know, whatever you want to do. I don't care but I want.
And PH said the proof should be free.
Okay. Yeah. I don't object to that. I mean, like if you want to say that my power bill, I can walk in and bring my power bill and show you that I live in this county, which is the important point I'm making here.
Yeah.
Because in Atlanta, when you went to get voting, you also voted on because of restoration. And actually restoration is probably not the best thing that ever happened to the South.
Reconstruction.
Because reconstruction, restoration, reconstruction had some good theories, but part of those good theories were not well implemented and fortunately suffered going down the line.
And of course it didn't last very long though, right?
Well, no, the concept that all of your judges are going to be elected.
Yeah.
So many things became elected, and the theory was to prevent people from
old boys networks and things like that. Yeah.
Whatever, but it doesn't actually do that, and all it does is make things more complicated. So when I was voting, like if I would go to vote, particularly if it was a national election, right? The presidential election. Yeah. You would walk in to where you would go to vote. You'd have to prove where and because of how big and widespread it is, there are polling locations all over the place, and you need to make sure you're going to the right polling location, because anytime there's a vote, there's something like between 25 and 50 things you need to vote for on the ballot. There are, and depending on what side of the county you're living on, you might have, this side might be voting for their county electors, and this side of the county might not. You know, and if you don't know what, it's like, all right, okay, maybe a couple times that's going to be a problem, but I'm like, I would rather just have people be voting where they're supposed to be voting for what they're supposed to be voting for. I don't care how we choose to do that. You know, like I personally think just bringing your power bill should be acceptable. Just walk in with that.
I will say, and this is not a pushback, it's just like interesting, right? What I think is interesting is this is again sort of getting back to the interesting thing that I'm thinking about right now, which is the complexity of city, county, district, state, country, right? Like, and how that, like the scaling of that becomes complicated. Because like when I was in the Army, even though I did not live in the United States, right?
You voted absentee ballot.
I voted absentee ballot. I could not vote in any local elections because I didn't have a local, right? Because I'd been away.
You don't vote in a local election. You basically only get like state and federal.
Right. So I could vote in state and federal elections even though I didn't live in the United States, which was like cool, right? Like, and I thought that was great. And there was not really a problem, right? Because right, that all made sense. I mean, I did know some people who had some problems because they lived in different states than I did. In California, if you're a California resident, whatever that means. But you're making your money outside of California. You don't have to pay California state taxes on it, right? So when I was in the Army, not in California, I did not have to pay California state tax on on my army funds because I wasn't in California. But there are states wherein you do, right? But if you are not a California resident and you're making money in California, you have to pay California state tax, right? So anybody who's in California physically has to pay California state tax. So I knew people who were at DLI in Monterey, sort of the Language Institute in Monterey, and they had to pay California state tax on their Army income because they were in California, but they were from states that made them pay state income tax in their home state as well. So they had to pay California state tax, the state tax from their home state, and then federal tax, which didn't seem fair. But like, again, right, we have these moments where like the different states are doing different things. And so that seemed kind of complicated. Now we're talking about like local things in the power bill. And I'm like, right, yes. But then I was thinking, okay, but if you are a university student, you may not be paying a power bill, right? So then what?
But if you're a university student, you have a university ID,
right? Yes, right. So like it should be very expansive, and
I mean, like
yeah.
I'm sorry, it's like that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
If you're a university student, you have to have the university ID.
Yeah.
And trust me, if you live
Yeah.
in Atlanta, you have, and you're
Yeah.
going to any one of the arch schools, you're using your university ID to get
everything,
50 billion things that you want.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I think part of me is like, and I basically I don't have an opinion, right? Because I don't, because basically there's too many factors, right? For me to really have a full opinion on this one. But what I'm going to say is that I feel like the kind of interestingly decentralized model that we have can be complicated, right? And I was thinking about this in terms of San Francisco's city council. There was originally in San Francisco, and by that, I mean, I don't know how far back, but like in the 60s and 70s, right? This is part of what happened with Harvey Milk and all of that. Before Harvey Milk's time, San Francisco had elections for the city council that was not location based at all. Like you just voted, like there's like a big list of people and then you voted and whoever got the most votes was on the city council. And people were like, hey, this seems to be unfair because local neighborhoods don't get representation at all, right? Like there are neighborhoods that are important neighborhoods, like they have interests, but their population is not as big as some other neighborhoods. And so they don't ever get to have anybody represent them on the city council because we're doing one big mass city council. So then, of course, they moved to having the city electors, the city council members, be by neighborhood, which then meant you got a more diverse representation, right? Like North Beach got like somebody who sort of represented North Beach and each post got its part. And that then allowed Harvey Milk and other people to get elected that would never have gotten elected before. And people thought that was really important. And I think it's just really tricky because I see over time arguments, and this is actually also about the EU and then also about like countries that want to break away countries, and like this sort of like this interesting tension between breaking apart and being different and small and coming together and conglomerating. And like I don't have a preference or response. All I note is that there's this tension between both of those impulses, and both of those impulses seem to sort of work in some kind of cycle where you get very small and then it really doesn't work out for people. So then you get really big and that also doesn't work out for people. And then like sort of like kind of goes back and forth between these like splinters and then these sort of conglomerations. And I don't have an answer for it, but I just note it. And I note that it does cause problems when it comes to trying to figure out how you're going to do elections or taxation or all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of that, and a lot of it really comes down to a lot of things and how things are set up and ideologies. And I mean, for example, like my family in Italy, there's a large push, particularly right now in Italy, to leave the EU.
Yeah.
Well, particularly to leave the euro. Because of the way it went into effect and is actually harmful at the moment.
To some countries, right? To like Greece, Italy,
Spain, pretty much all of Southern Europe, which all of Northern Europe happily takes advantage of. Sorry.
But then again, leaving the Eurozone has not been great for England right now, right? And
yeah, but England was never on the euro.
No, it never was. There's
only nominally part of the EU.
Yeah.
its biggest problem right now is structurally how it was going about all of this shit. And I'm sitting here in my happy little Irish Republican heart laughing my ass off.
Speaking of the Irish Republican heart, can I say something really interesting?
Always.
I think this is really interesting. And again, this seems like a different topic, but it's all about, again, that relationship between separate and grouping, like sort of separating and grouping and all of that. And for those of you who are super young, you may not know this, but there was a lot of violence happening in the United Kingdom and Ireland for many decades, and the 80s were a particularly bad time. We called them the Troubles, right?
Well, the 70s.
Yes, the 70s, but it was still happening in the 80s. There was still like...
Yeah, there was a lot. The really bad years were in the 70s and the early 90s. And we look at our dear friend Bono. Yeah. And who actually did something.
And what was really interesting about this, right, is that, and like, this is me, right, as a person who grew up in San Francisco, which is a very Irish Republican space city, and just a person who was old enough to remember these moments. And what I thought was really fascinating was that I remember people would talk and they would say, like, because like you had like school kids being stoned. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, it was a bad time. Like, it was not a good time. And I remember people saying they could never see a way in which this could be resolved, right? There's they just don't see how this would ever resolve in the way that people talk about the Middle East. And then it sort of stopped being like that in the way that it was. And people are like, oh, it was Bill Clinton's diplomacy. It was all this stuff people were talking about. These things.
It wasn't Bill Clinton's diplomacy.
No. And I was talking to a cab driver here in not here, I'm currently in Atlanta, but in the Boston area recently. And we were talking about the Brexit. It was like during the Brexit hadn't happened yet, but it was about it. And I could tell he was actually Irish, not Irish American. And I was like, oh, when did you move here? And he's like, 91. I was like, oh, I see. And he talked about, like, he was walking down the street and somebody walked up and just shot somebody in the back of the head right next to him. He's like, okay, I need to go. And we were talking about all this. And he said that one of the things that really de-conflicted, that's not the word, de-escalated. Thank you. De-escalated all those conflicts was the EU, because what that meant, he said, was getting rid of all the militarized checkpoints, border control points between Ireland and England. And so that sort of removing these sort of like English military people with guns at these checkpoints, like, really,
almost like the British Army being anywhere is a problem.
Stopped a lot of these troubles. And he said to me, and I thought this was really fascinating, he said, I'm very worried about what will happen with Brexit, because I'm very concerned that when Brexit happens, those checkpoints are going to come back in again, and I'm worried about the violence starting up again. And and I thought that, like, that's like when these little details that people don't think about, right? Like, people don't think about, like, what happens when you have movement or not.
I've got two things. One, I'm going to point out something to Unstable Deus. I'm going to be a classicist here, and by that I mean a person who studies Latin and Greek and ancient Roman and Greek history extensively, and say that no, you're never going to have a functional direct democracy of a country the size of the United States. It can't function.
It's too big.
It's too big, because you need to vote on every single choice that is made, as was very much learned by the Athenians and how their entire government basically collapsed during the Peloponnesian War. And that's why nominally the Spartans win the Peloponnesian War, because you just couldn't maintain the size of the scope, and it would be problematic.
Can I yes and you for a second?
Yep.
In California, we have the initiative system, like the proposition system.
Yeah, they have the same thing in Georgia.
Yeah, and the proposition system apparently, like in the 19th century, was like included for like democratic reasons. But how it tends to work out is not great, because people who have a lot of money can pay to get their basically they can pay to their ballots on their initiatives on the ballot, their propositions there, just through like just lots of money. And they tend to write things in ways that are deliberately confusing. And what ends up happening, this happens like what has happened in California, is that people are like, and even if people have like really good intentions, they'll do things like, you know what we should really do? We should spend 5% of our budget on recycling every year. And so they make a proposition that says that 5% of the California state budget must be spent towards recycling efforts. And then like 13 years later, someone's like, I think we should spend 7% of our budget on this. And, you know, there are hundreds of years and lots of decades, and you get up to a space where, because in this direct democracy moment of the proposition system, people are voting percentages of your budget to be allocated specifically for the rest of eternity on things, then you get to a point where like 70% of your budget is being allocated to things, and the people who have been elected to try to deal with budgeting and, you know, run things can't effectively run things because, and like, I'm just saying that like, I am not an accountant, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not an expert on the California state budget, and I don't know if I should be voting in that way, right? Like, I feel like maybe I should vote on people who are experts on that. And if I don't like what they're doing, I can vote them out. But like, there's something about, there's certain ways in which certain kinds of direct micromanaging, that's what it is. Like sometimes it can become micromanaging in ways that become unhealthy, right?
It's unhealthy.
And also, Unstable Deer says, like, I feel like all bills need a sunsetting clause, right? Like, and that's like these propositions, and that, but of course, that's not what we have, right? And all of a sudden, yeah, and also some things maybe shouldn't actually be in a proposition at all. Like, there are certain kinds of like people shouldn't have certain rights that were propositions, and I was like, oh, I don't know about how I feel about that at all, right? Like, and especially because,
the way things are written. But to get back to your point about the troubles and one of the things that's going to be a problem that isn't been addressed and is slowly starting to become a problem because of just things have been slowly building and people have started noticing is that by creating a hard border in Northern Ireland, between Northern Ireland and Ireland. Wow, sorry, we keep talking.
No, because I said in the very beginning, we're going to 3:30, so like, I'm good.
By putting because the EU needs to have a hard border between EU and Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there has to be a hard border between Ireland and England and Britain. Oh, wait, the Northern Ireland is still part of Britain. Give Ireland back to the Irish. Sorry. I will make sure to give him 10 minutes for the banjo. The problem you have is having a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland is a violation of the Good Friday Accords.
Yeah.
And considering that the Good Friday Accords aren't a treaty, they're a ceasefire. Which is a very important distinction, legally speaking.
Yeah.
Legally speaking, the war in Northern Ireland never ended. It's just in a ceasefire.
Same thing with the Korean War. The Korean War is also in a ceasefire, not actually finished.
It's why we can technically still have a large minefield and it not be a violation of a lot of laws. So the ceasefire in Northern Ireland is predicated on the Good Friday Accords, and part of that is a non-hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. You got your Brexit, now you have a hard border.
Yeah.
Which is a violation of the Good Friday Accords, which is a violation of your ceasefire.
And if I remember correctly, that was also a public vote, right? Like the Brexit, where people were given a lot of misinformation about what would or wouldn't happen with leaving like the EU in the way that they were going to do it. And then people got really surprised. Like people just straight up lied. Like Nigel Farage just lied about things that would or wouldn't happen. And people are like, oh, okay. And then they're like, wait, hold on a second. Right. And I think, and so it's, what I'm saying is very complicated because I actually do believe in democracy. People should vote on things. But Krellin said that it doesn't work when people are voting, can't have as part of their job knowing what's going on with the issues they're voting on. And I think that this is part of the problem.
Yeah, and you can,
right?
And Courier is also right that a hard border is going to economically devastate both Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Yes, absolutely.
Northern Ireland even more at this point.
And Courier's Irish. If you don't, I don't know if you know Courier.
I know.
Courier's great.
Yeah,
I love Courier. She's great. One of the big Brexit lies was that so much money was being kept from the NHS by the EU. Yeah, and And I think what's really tricky about this is that, so growing up in California, one of the things that I really appreciated that we don't get in Massachusetts, which, and I miss it, is that in California, we would get a voter's booklet every year, which listed every person running for every position and their like bio, every single proposition and initiative and bill, and like a description of what it did and with both a pro and a con. And it was done by like the California voting office or whatever. So it was like a uh, not paid advertising. And it was very nice to be able to be like, oh, actually, I don't know about this one little city thing. And oh, look, they have like the little, like they've got a little analysis of like what the economic, it was very nice to be able to inform myself in a convenient way about these things before I would vote on them. And up here in Massachusetts, we don't get one of those. And so when the election happens, I'm like, okay, well, what is this one then? Right? Like, and I have to do a lot of research to figure out what some of these things mean or who some of these people are. And some of them I can't actually get information on. Like some people running for judges, I can't get information on them. And so then my choice is, do I just vote with partial information, or do I just not vote on this thing? And I think a lot of people just won't vote, right? So then, or they'll just
because
vote.
they don't know what or they're just going to randomize their vote, or they have no idea what they're voting on.
Yeah. And I feel like that's not ideal, right? That does not feel ideal to me. It doesn't feel good to me to not have that information. You know what I mean? And yeah, but then also, yeah. So that's not a lot of that's not like a full formed opinion. My opinion is I don't like not having that information, and I can recognize the ways in which not having that information is not good.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to what I was talking about when I was living in Atlanta, living in Georgia. I lived in Doraville, in DeKalb County. I was voting for Doraville, DeKalb County, Georgia. Every time, and then if there were national elections. And okay, so wait, there are 5 people running for the Doraville City Council, but there are 10 people running for 4 slots on the county board. And oh wait, we've got 3 people running for the Water Commission and 6 people running for the DeKalb County School Board, which, by the way, I want you to understand how screwed up and corrupt the school board in DeKalb County was, that the Georgia state had to take over its running and function. Oof. And that is a federal law that hasn't been implemented except once. Mm-hmm. And well, Krellin, yes and no about your statement. It's not 100% correct, because Athenian citizens weren't based on land ownership. It's tied to your family line. Your mother and father had to both be
classicist here.
Yeah, well, yeah. But also important into that is there were people who didn't, right? And you had elections and people voted, but people also rotated who was part of the board, who was doing the voting for each day, and even to the point of who was supposed to be calling for the votes. Socrates is very well known for particularly being an individual who, there was a battle with the Spartans. The Athenian general lost horribly, just bad, in a way that was not like he gave up the field. It was just a bad loss. And
well, I mean, I did see that movie 300, which I know is historically accurate completely, so I understand.
No, that's an entirely separate. That's a different war. Persian war problem.
Yes,
Persian war problem, not Peloponnesian war. Stop.
No, I know it's a different war, but I'm just saying that, like, since we know that the Spartans have like CGI, like clearly they beat the Athenians when they got into a battle with them.
Look, it doesn't always happen, but when they did, it did. The Spartans won the particular battle. The Athenians got up in arms about this particular general, and the populace is like, he's a horrible, horrible person. We should kill him.
That's a lot.
And Socrates is like, he lost a battle. You didn't. There were lots of reasons he lost the battle. Why are we? Well, he's obviously a traitor. You should vote and have him declared a traitor. and Socrates refused to hold the vote.
Oh, interesting.
So the guy lived for that day. Socrates was not the person calling the vote for the next day. Another Athenian was. He gave in to the mob mentality of the rest of the city, and the guy was declared a traitor and a heretic, and a horrible person, and he was executed. Ooh. Athenian naval power was superior for a time. Spartan armies had a much more trained land army for a time. Sparta was also better in picking their battles. Sparta won because, and that's not actually a bad thing. Actually, that is proof of them as being a slightly superior fighting force, because
and tactics, right?
They had better tactics.
Yeah.
But that's the point. Is like it comes down to.
Oh, thanks, Rissa. I'm gonna take that link.
And Ballotpedia is a good option. It doesn't usually contain everything, but it's a good option. Thank you, Rissa.
Thank you.
I was trying to remember where it was, but it is a thing. I will also say,
in a tab.
One of the other things that people frequently forget is, picking your battles is a strategy. It's great tactics.
Yes, thank you, Krellin. Correct. Tactics
is the individual battle. Yep. The Athenian, what we have made, and by we I mean the human population, and this is me speaking as an anthropologist, so I'm taking off my classist hat and putting on my anthropologist hat.
Wait, before you say these things, I need to ask this question. It's very important.
Yes.
And it's very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Could you describe what the classicist hat looks like, and also what the anthropologist hat looks like? I need to know the difference between what they look like aesthetically. This is important.
Okay, so the classicist hat is the slightly oversized grass sun hat.
Oh, nice.
So that it can be worn on, because a bunch of classicists also double as archaeologists.
Yep.
You need those.
Yep.
Also, so you can occasionally just lay out on the beach in southern Sicily and take your break. And then you had
Is the anthropologist hat sort of the Indiana Jones archaeologist hat?
Yeah, and then the anthropologist is actually not the Indiana Jones archaeologist hat, although close. It is closer to the flat top leather cowboy hat from Australia.
Oh yeah, a rover hat. Yeah.
Rover hat. A drover hat. So it's got both options. But there you go. And here's my putting on the anthropologist hat, and then I'll put the classicist hat back on to answer Salskin's question. We have taken and evolved. Notice I'm using evolved in quotation marks here. Systems of government that were designed to function on small scale, and by small scale I mean maybe a village, maybe a small town, probably not even a small town, but a village scale.
Like what kind of population are we talking about?
Less than 1,000.
Okay.
Less than 1,000. Of let's say less than 1,000 of adults who would possibly be able to engage in this sort of whatever government,
and probably without a lot of complicated technology, right? What I mean by that is like in terms of like what your budgeting is like, the things you have to take into account, et cetera, right?
No, actually, that's an orphanism, because it's also we're focusing on things that you still had. Look, the Romans built an entire aquifer system that half of Italy still uses today,
and roads
that half of Europe still uses today, and a big but we've taken governmental systems that were designed for 1,000 functioning adults. It doesn't have anything to do with technological levels. It has to do with and applied it and taken it without real structural concept of change to a much vaster, larger scale population. We've done it with communism. And we've done it with democracy. We've done it with representative republics. We've done it with monarchies. We've done it with every conceivable governmental structure that humanity has ever invented. Because we basically say, this is our government and we're going to keep using it. And then we were like, oh, wait, we have a new one. We're going to use that. Oh, wait, we have a new one. We're going to use that.
Can I ask you a quick question, though?
Understanding that a lot of those were used for particular reasons. Yes.
Before you answer Sal's question, because, I can ask. I know, one thing that I know, right, as a musicologist, because we care about the classics a lot, but in a different kind of a way, in that the people in the 18th century were obsessed with ancient Greece. And
but I haven't read about that, but moving on.
But the ancient Greece they were obsessed with was a fantasy of ancient Greece, shall we say, right?
It was a fantasy of ancient Greece predicated on it filtered through a desired understanding of both English and German. And used to facilitate the existence of what was already there in England and Germany. Yes.
And so what I wanted to ask you was, so I will tell you what they did in music, and then I would like to ask you about this in terms of democracy. So one of the things that you learn if you learn music, music theory, that kind of stuff, is you learn the modes, right? The modes, the musical modes, Dorian, Ionic, right? Yeah. And we say they came from ancient Greece, but that is just a lie.
And classicists laugh and we say, why are you calling your modes of music after columns?
Yeah, right. And Phrygian mode, right? And we will quote Plato. Right? We'll quote some of these things and all that. But they just made them up. That's just not at all what ancient Greek music sounds like, because we only have 3 fragments of ancient Greek music anyway. There's 3 or 4 of them. And so they just made up this whole thing, right, about ancient Greece musical practice, which is just completely made up. It's just completely made up. And of course it becomes the basis of church modes, and it becomes the basis of a lot of European music. So it is important. But they want the authority of ancient Greece. Right? So they claim that it's an ancient Greek thing in order to give them a particular kind of authority, but it is just not.
See, here's the thing. They want the authority of ancient Greece, but they don't want to actually be tied to Greece because they don't think the Greeks are actually worth anything. Yes. I would like to point you to how the Germans still treat the Greeks.
Yeah. But that's the thing. They like ancient Greece. They don't like...
Yeah, because they claim that whatever.
They don't like current Greece, right?
But they don't actually want the Greeks. They just want the cred and what they want it put their whatever. You see it all the time in classicists. And to answer your question, Salaskin,
but is it the same with democracy? That was my actual question is it the same thing with Greek democracy? Have we made up an idea of Athenian democracy that is not actually how it worked?
Hey, guess what? You want to know the word demos and what that means? So democracy is come from demos and kresis. They're 2 Greek words. They're very good Greek words. You should learn Greek. Greek is good.
Krillin, you make me laugh. Go ahead.
Demos means neighborhood. Or village, hamlet. And remembering that Athens is actually... Is it 7 or 9? I don't remember the total. I don't remember the official number. I'm sorry. I'm a bad Greek Hellenist at the moment. Is made up of originally 7 or 9 neighborhoods that come around the base of the Acropolis. And the demos are the votes from those neighborhoods who would go to and all I can think of is Senate, but it's not the Senate, it's the aria, where the voting, where the people voted. So even democracy as
forum as Sal?
No, forum is where you shop. It's Greek. Well, it says Metaphoria. So no, that's the religious festival. Where is it held? Hey, here. So here's a fun facts. My screen name is made up of two of my favorite Aristophanes plays. One is called the Ecclesia Zeusai, and the other is, and Praxagora is the main character in the Ecclesia Zeusai, and the other is Thesmophoria, which is about a women's religious festival. Praxagora, the whole point of the Ecclesia Zeusai is that Praxagora is trying to get gender equality, and she wants to go to the assembly and have, but where is it held? Anyways, the location is called the assembly, right? And Ecclesia Zeusai means assembly women. So assembly is the best action.
So I will just say, Unstable Dios has this really great question, which is, does it really matter if our impression of ancient Greece's structures is different from what they were historically, as long as we restrict the conversation of the structures we use? I would say the only thing that is a problem for me personally is not, it's the fantasy and the ideology, right? So for example...
It's a thing that classicists have been fighting, and it's why words are important. Hi, linguist, I'm going to do this. It's why words are important, because, and particularly translations of words are important.
I mean, I think the best example for me is nationalism, right? People are like, well, we're Germans and we have been here forever, and so it's okay for us to kill or reject other people, except that there were no Germans. Like that's a made up thing.
Germany didn't exist before 1848. Sorry, move on.
Right, like, and before you had Bavarians and Alemanen and like you had all these different people, and the idea that there was a Germany somehow forever and they were all based on Aryans, also not a true thing, is used not in a good way, right? You know what I mean?
And I'm going to take it to a most basic concept level. And this is me with my anthropologist linguist hat on. At the most basic, and this is why words are important, and I will stress this all the time. Words are important, and they have meaning, and they have definition. And particularly when you take words from other languages, and apply your own definitions to them, there's going to be problems. Words, at their core function of what they do for humanity, human animal population, word is a symbol. It is a means of transmission of idea. It is a way for me to take what is in my brain and express it and show it to other people. And if I don't have the same definition of a term, a word, a symbol that you do, then our communication is inherently flawed. And our communication will not function. So every time somebody says, it doesn't matter what this word means, I'm going to use it this way, that doesn't help, because other people have different definitions. And if you say, well, my definition is the valid one,
and the things
but that means that you can't have a
conversation,
meaningful conversation and communication.
And of course, words change meaning,
fails,
right? And words change meaning, and that's fine.
Words do change meaning, but you can't force change of meaning. So So I'll go back to Sal's answer, and then I'll answer Unstable Dios, because I'm doing this.
I just say the thing is that when people make up things like that, there's often ideology and power, right? Like attaching that to the ancient Greeks was not an accident, and it wasn't neutral.
No, it wasn't. It was entirely intentional. It was entirely intentional in very specific means, because they didn't actually want to give Greek credits.
No, they did not.
It's why here's a very famous example. The triptychs of the Parthenon, hey, guess what? You want to know where they're located?
England.
You want to know what they're called there?
The Elgin Marbles.
we don't talk about the fact that they don't belong to England. And hey, England's claim to them is basically, well, the Ottomans sold it to us. It's like, hey, they didn't belong to the Ottomans either.
Yeah.
The Ottomans were an invading population and were actively trying to undermine the Greeks that were living in Athens for a very political wartime reason.
But also sometimes with the Elgin marbles and with some other things, they're like, well, but here's the thing. We are the inheritors of the Greek tradition, and you all are not really sophisticated enough to take care of them like we can, right? So there's a way in which when you claim yourself to be the inheritors of the Greek tradition, but the Greeks themselves don't get to count, then you can take all the Greek stuff, right? You know what I mean?
You can take all of the Greek stuff. You can claim that you're more superior. And hi, I'm looking at you, England. Fuck off. And I will put out there that this is my bias. My mother's family is from Sicily. My father's family is from the west of Ireland. Fuck off, England. Also, hi, KP. I am really looking forward to this movie that you posted the trailer for, because I am here for all the anti-British imperialism. Possibly. 10-minute. Oh no.
I'm going to play the banjo soon, but I just think it's important that these things don't happen accidentally, right? They happen for power purposes.
They happen for a purpose. They happen for a power purpose. They happen for power, and they happen for a perfect, when someone can say, hi, we're using this word now that we know was yours. And we're going to just, so let's talk 5 seconds and I'll throw this in there and I'll answer Sal's question. To the early, exactly. Dead.
Didn't work out well for him. He didn't work out well for him.
No, he very dead. He's not a popular person. But so you have. I ran into this, and it's a thing that bothers me, and it bothers me for all cultures and all foods. I was told that recently that a thing which was made of a yeasted dough that was pounded flat and cooked on a grill, very important point, cooked on the grill, and covered in
probably a light tomato
buffalo sauce and squash blossoms, and served with a dipping sauce, was a pizza. And I'm like, nah, it's not. He goes, well, it doesn't matter. It's a pizza. It's what people think of pizza. It's like, no, that's not a pizza. I'm sorry. We can talk about how there are different cultures have very different flatbreads, and there are large numbers of them that have different definitions. Hi, there's a flatbread that exists in Croatia. There's one that exists in Ethiopia. There are 3 that I can think of that are different through Palestine, Israel, and Lebanon. But guess what? None of those are pizza. But it doesn't matter because we now have a new definition of pizza and it doesn't matter. It's like, no, that's an appropriation. You white ass motherfuckers have taken that word, and now people are like, this is wasps. I'm going to use the term wasps from now on.
Because that's more specific.
Because it's more specific.
Yeah.
And by wasp, I mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Yep.
And there are people who are like, well, we can take this word and it doesn't matter. I'm like, no, it does matter. There's a definition. You are not going to walk up to anybody in Naples and say, I want a pizza.
Oh, but they're not traveling to Naples.
But it does. But that's the thing, is like, they think that the word pizza belongs in English. It's a word that came from a particular language. And hi. Will Grinning Moon, welcome to the right place. Yes, we're anti-colonialism, and in a large number of ways. And when you, and that's just as much appropriation as going into the American Southwest and saying, hi, I can make, or going into South America and saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make arepas with rice flour. I'm like, I'm going to laugh and walk over here and not get hit.
But I think
both of those things are appropriation, and both of them are wrong.
What I think is tricky, right, is that, and then I'm going to play the banjo, but what I think is tricky is that we have to recognize that pizza is not an unchanging concept, right? So, for example, pizza in Turin is not the same thing as pizza in Sicily, right? Like, there's not one only
but
pizza.
But also,
like that within Italy.
The city's name is Torino.
Torino, yeah, it's that even within.
I know. They changed it just to make the Americans who did the look. They changed the name of it to Turin to make the names of the. So when people did the Winter Olympics and they made the announcement, they didn't screw it up. But
yeah,
the name of the city is Torino.
So like that pizza is not a fixed singular symbol, even within Italy. And also then there's the diaspora, right? So that
yes.
There are people who are making pizza that is different, and they are Italian diasporic people, right? And they create a pizza that is different than you would get in the same way that, like, you know, a pizza in Sicily is just not the same thing as pizza in Rome. And that, I think, is like, I feel like cultural evolution is different than appropriation.
Cultural evolution is very different than appropriation.
But both of those things do exist, right? Like there's both appropriation
exactly.
as well as cultural evolution. And just kind of thinking about, like, I always think about that as there was just this really wonderful video by this woman. I don't know if you know her. She did the book Iron Widow. She's
I know I follow her. She's a wonderful person. She has a whole YouTube channel.
Yes.
She's really
super smart.
And now I'm blanking because I thought she was using they pronouns.
Oh, I don't know now. We'll use they.
I've got my Twitter right open.
Yeah. Well, we use they at the moment. Jiren something Zhao, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, it's
yes, Jiren. Yes, that's her name. That's her name.
Jiren J Zhao and
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Are they pronouns?
They're they pronouns.
Oh, nice. So they have done some amazing videos, and I first met them with I think one of their first video, which was on Mulan, and
yeah, which on the live action Mulan, and that rant is hilarious. And then go watch them on their
so good.
The animated movie being so much better.
Yeah, and the thing is, they are so smart about costuming. Like they're just very smart. Like really great videos. And they did a video that sort of warmed my heart a little bit as a San Franciscan about, it was a defense of Chinese American food. And this is actually very interesting because I see this in different forms. And it was like they were saying, people like to say that like Chinese American food is just crap and it has nothing to do with China and it's the worst and you should never look at it. And like they just talk smack. And they said, but actually that's not true. It's made by Chinese immigrants who had nothing, and they created a form of food that is legitimate. Now, they were not talking about other things.
Chop suey.
Yeah. But they're saying
chop suey is a very different concept. But yeah.
But they were saying that it was that there is value in Chinese American food, and that to devalue it is actually kind of sketchy, right? Because it does not allow diasporic people connections. Like it just does a lot of things that are not particularly cool. And they made this really nice, I thought very nice defense of diasporic traditions. And as a person who is diasporic and who, because I live in the United States and all my friends therefore are also diasporic in I don't know anybody in the United States who, I do know some people because they're native. But although actually a lot of the native people, because of the Indian Removal Act, are also in their own way diasporic, right? Because they're no longer in the places where
I'm going to be entirely honest. I lived on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And Hawaii. So no, wait, I know Nisi and Hawaiians. Yeah. So yes, I know native Hawaiians. Yeah. But I live on the East Coast.
Yeah.
There.
Right. And just like, I just really appreciated their respect given to diasporic cultures, because I feel so often people devalue diasporic cultures as not real or not meaningful, and that makes me sad, because it's people who, are doing what they can do, and they do cool things too. That's all.
There's a lot of value in it. Like there's cultural change and cultural transmission and cultural evolution. All of those exist. And then there's also appropriation, which is not good. And then there's cultural destruction, which is also not good. And all of these things. But I want to answer Sal's question about Spartans. No, Sal, none of the Spartan army were slaves. You
That's
could
right.
not serve in the Spartan army unless you were and you couldn't serve in the Spartan army if you were a helot either, not even just slaves, but helots. Slaves and helots were technically different ranks, although they're not established functionally, they were the same. But the only people who could serve in the Spartan army were Spartan men, citizens. Also the only people who could serve in the Spartan Senate. You had to have also served in the army to be able to serve in the Senate. And it was also tied to lineage. Now, there is a book called The Bronze Lie, written by Mike Cole, for whom Mike Cole is a very complicated and conflicting individual, because some people have made comments about his behavior at a certain con when he got very intoxicated, and then he apologized. So there are people who are very upset with him for those comments, and nothing racial, but he was hitting on a couple people inappropriately. And some people feel that his apology should have been enough and it was done. Some people wanted him entirely canceled, and they effectively got him entirely canceled, so much that his 2 book deals got canceled.
Oh wow.
But The Bronze Lie is a good academic source for an analyzation of the fact that people, particularly 19th century Germans, Germans and English, appropriated the history of Sparta in a way, and particularly those modern white nationalists, assholes, and German Nazis during World War II appropriated imagery and ideology of Sparta that didn't exist. For a particular narrative. The Spartan army was very good. Part of it being so good was that very particular in what battles it chose to engage in. It did not have a very good navy. It was a much better army. It also it lost to the Thebes. Sorry.
But we don't talk
Macedonia.
about Thebes because they're not sexy like Athens and Sparta. That's all we want to talk about. I'm just saying how the media works.
And part of that is because, the most popular people in Thebes, the most well-known Thebians are very gay.
Yeah. So let's.
You have banjo to play.
I do. Anyway, I just wanted to say something. By the fact that I loved all that. I think I was thinking about sort of thinking about diaspora, right? And I was thinking about all of that, and I was cultural evolution and change and change and think these thoughts and fusions and all of that. And I think it's important. It's, all this goes back to the beginning of like small versus large, that tension, right? Sort of recognizing like that specificity, but also seeing larger things. And I mean, I kind of tend to think those things are sort of beautiful. And when new things sort of are created, but we have to be careful that we're not harming people in the process, right? And I think that's one of the things that when you make up a Sparta that doesn't exist in order to harm people, then people should be able to say, actually, hold on, right? Or actually, I think another really good example is Ice Bunny, who is a Viking stock, right? That a bunch of white nationalists have appropriated Viking religious practice in order to make it white supremacist.
And I will note,
that's
this
messed
is me
up.
being a nerdy person at this point, that your even terminology is part of the problem.
Please go on. Viking?
Viking is a profession.
Yes, that is correct.
The population are Norse.
Yes, the Norse.
And Viking is a profession. You would go a Viking, go raiding, and then go back to your home.
Yeah, right, and like live.
And but we want the ideology and the image of Vikings and battles, and we want horns on helmets. That never
happened. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say never,
but it was not the thing.
Yeah. And actually, horns on helmets is more of a is Northern Gaul from Belgium.
Yeah.
What will
Yep.
eventually be called Belgium is more likely to put horns on helmets, and that was because they would then take their helmet off and use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
Horn on the belt, not on the head. There you go. As
Yeah.
funny as right.
And so, like, I just think that's one of those things I just think we have to be thoughtful, right? Because sometimes people take things like that to do harm, and we have to sort of like be careful. Wait, what do we got? Even in the 1960s, says Time, Harold Macmillan, when he met Kennedy, made the analogy to the world's press that England was Athens, the United States Sparta. Stands back and wait for Spartans. Prax to explode.
I would like to point out, hey, England. Now, I'm not saying this because Time. Oh no, Chromatic. My dad was in the Coast Guard. We didn't get to play any more fun like kick 'em. I mean, we could, but we weren't staying there. I would like to point out Time is from Ireland, so what I'm about to say is not going to offend him. Hey, England, guess what? You think you're Athens, but considering you only let one of your playwrights become famous, I think you got a problem. You can't even attempt to be as artful as Athens was. Step off.
Look, I want to go and talk for 1,000 years more, and I want to talk about...
but you have banjo to play.
But I have banjo to play, and then I'm going to go. But I really want to talk later about this documentary series that I saw about the invention of pornography. And it talked about the invention of pornography with the discovery of Pompeii, and a bunch of British people being like, ooh, oh, and then sort of creating this sort of like basically secret museum that only like upper class British men could see, because they really felt like the reason why the Roman Empire fell was because women and poor people masturbated and had too many sexual thoughts, and that only people like them can handle sexual. So basically it was like when they say the invention of pornography, they mean like thinking about sex in that kind of way as pornography, whereas in Pompeii they were like, whatever, we have penis statues.
Yeah,
it's fine.
and I love all of the analysis that what people believe is a whorehouse in Pompeii isn't. It's great.
Right. Like, and so it's a really kind of interesting thing.
Until later they do actually find a real brothel, but that's a separate location.
Right. And like thinking about and I bring this up because you were talking about Athens, right, versus Sparta, and this sort of like at this moment, this British obsession with not wanting to lose their empire and like trying to learn from Rome how Rome fell, and their idea was like, falling has to do with too much sex. So anyway, there's like a lot of really interesting things I thought about what it was such a good documentary series, because it looked each there were like more, I think there were 4 parts. I think I only saw one. I think it was based on an academic book. And each part was about a technology. So that first one, which talked about Pompeii, was about statues. And then the next one was about paintings, I believe. And then they did the printing press and talked about and then I think they did more modern stuff. But it was always about how sexual imagery is usually only a problem when people who are not rich people get access to it, right? So like it was a problem with the printing press, because then all of a sudden these things that they had been putting in there, like the emoji, all these sort of very pornographic things rich people would have, poor people started getting access to them, and like, no, now we don't like this, right? So like this really interesting thing about access, right? Like who gets to have access to things, and I just like, and which actually goes right back to the idea like naked statues are fine, right? Because they're classical. Anyway, I found that this whole sort of concept of anxiety around the empire, around sexuality being really interesting. That's all. And we can talk about it. That's it. We'll talk about it. But I'm going to play the banjo before we go. And Prax.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting me, admittedly, I was supposed to just come in and drive Cheshire Bridge Road, and then we started talking.
It happens. It happens. And because we haven't in a while, and I missed it. So it was so lovely. And we'll just have to do it again.
Yes, we will. And
because like I wanted to talk to you about the breakdown of that book by what's-his-face, The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. That guy that wrote this, like, I think academics don't really respect him anymore, but like I think it's probably in the 60s or 70s. He wrote this whole book about thinking that people in the ancient times had different ways of thinking than we do now, in terms of their relationship to the supernatural and God, and
yep.
That like the concept of the eye. And this is, it's interesting because he wasn't writing this, but I was in a class on performance studies that was looking at Samuel Pepys' diaries and talked about how the concept of the private eye is not a particularly modern one for most people, because most people didn't have private space, right? They didn't So like the idea of like you wouldn't really have diaries or these kinds of things earlier because the idea of private space and private self is a more modern invention. And I really just want your thoughts on it. That's all. I just want your thoughts on that later because
I'm restraining myself and not saying anything.
I know you're very good. I'm provoking you into saying things. I'm trying not to. But the idea that like we might actually have we might be living in different realities now because of the ways in which our society is structured than we would have done, 500 years ago. Yeah. Because people like to think that everything's the same. We just have different technology. But actually the idea that maybe things are not the same.
Okay, so Trooper, my exams end the 16th, and we can plan a colloquium for some point then.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll do a colloquium, but like we just got to talk about it. That's all. That's it.
Yes. Okay.
That's it. Okay.
You play the banjo.
I'll play the banjo. All right. I'm gonna go to this one. Whoop. Hey, Prax. Thank you, Prax.
You're welcome, dear.
That was Praxagor the Smophoria, and also. Everybody needs to, what's the word? Follow Prax right here. Jupiter and Zeus. Streamer. You know what? I feel like we totally have a streamer. And the thing is not just history, it's also like philosophically. Praxagora, oh, you know what? Thanks, Rissa. You're the best. Rissa's got it. We got it. That's what we got it. Okay, so thank you for being here for my video game stream, everybody. I love you all. I'm gonna play a song for you all because I wanted to play a song for Saturday. And here's the thing: I was gonna play a different song. This is what I need to tell you. So the banjo often is in G tuning for most things, but there are traditions of banjo playing where you change your tuning all the time. And there's a song that I play that's in double C tuning. And what happens is that I will practice the banjo in regular tuning. Then I'll change the tuning to double C tuning, practice that one song, and then I will not change the tuning back so that when I pick up the banjo, I will start with that song in double C tuning and then change the banjo back to G tuning and then play all the rest of the songs. When I picked up the banjo today, I realized that my banjo is currently in double C tuning. And rather than just retuning it, I was like, I'm just going to play you this song in double C tuning because that's the tuning that my banjo is currently in. And so rather than retuning everything, I'm just going to, do that. Now, I have not practiced this song in a while, and I'm super rusty on it. So this may not be the best ever, but I'm gonna play it for you anyway. Unstability says, that was a great discussion. I like video games, but sometimes there are more important conversations. Absolutely, Unstability. And I'm a very much a go with the flow kind of a person. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, let's just go with the flow and see what happens, and there you go. All right, so this song is Willow John, and it's by a banjo player named Tony Furtado, whom I love. I think he's a great banjo player, and this is one of his pieces. He plays it like 18,000 times faster than I do, as it turns out, and I will forget how this song goes, but I'm going to play this for you because I like this song quite a lot. So this is... if you haven't played this song in a while and the banjo is tuned to the song, does that mean you haven't practiced the banjo? I have not practiced the banjo in a while. I was practicing pretty heavily right before my bike packing trip, which was like 10 days ago. And since the bike packing trip, I have not been able to practice. So I'm like 10 days out of practice, but I'm going to get back into it. Oh, and thank you, Jose Satan. Can you say the sort of the enye? Yes, I can say the enye. And how are you, Jose Satan? Oh, by the way, before I leave, I'm gonna sing for those bits and also for the new subs. But I actually, the enye is a good letter. So this is Willow John, if I can remember how to play it properly. I think so. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. All right. Yes. got to start from the beginning because I was like, wait, how's that part go? No? Okay, I'm gonna start from the beginning, and then I got it. Okay, here we go. No? Okay, now I got it. I got it. It's been 10 days. There you go. Willow John. That's Willow John. I love that. Look, I love some double C tuning, and I'm gonna figure out more pieces in that tuning. But yeah, I just really love the vibe of that song. It's so haunting, you know. Plus, it's got a lot of bends, and that makes me really happy. So, all right. So, thank you. Look, and I'm going to be out of double C tuning for next Saturday, and I will play something else. I'm going to play something in regular G tuning next time, I promise. So, I can't go yet, because I have got some singing to do, and I do not want to leave this stream without having sung some things, because I love singing the things. So I'm gonna just I'm gonna do some singing. And I'm going to take my banjo off though. Y'all, thank you for sitting through that with me. Now, I might tell you, once I get my fingers back, I might play Willow John again at the beginning of next Saturday's stream. So please do prepare yourself for the possibility that you might hear Willow John again, because it's not completely where I want it to be. Like, it's not as fluid as it once was back in the day when I played all the time as an undergraduate, as a music major, because I majored in music, and I majored in banjo, as well as electronic music and composition and all that kind of stuff. But let me just put my banjo right here. Hey, baby. I love my banjo. Oh, y'all, I didn't tell you. Look, you don't need to know this. Like, I suppose you do need to know this. You don't need to know this. You don't need to know what I'm going to tell you. But I'm going to tell you anyway, because, why wouldn't I? So, I got some stuff. Grinning says, I can't remember exactly, but you had recommended Impressionism for my early 20s COC game. I did a little digging and found, Sati. Sati is wonderful. Oh, I'm so glad that you found Sati, Grinning Moon. Sati is so good. Krillin, oh no, we might hear you play a great song twice. What horror! So look, I got a really. First off, I got a brand new capo because my old capo was pulling things out of tune, and I don't like that. But I got this thing. It's called a banjo mute, and apparently, you put it on your bridge, and it makes the banjo less loud. But I was told that that's actually not true, that they say it makes the banjo less loud, but it really doesn't. But what it does is it changes the tone of the banjo. It sounds kind of different. So that seems kind of fun. And also, this is the other show and tell. And then this, and I'm totally, by the way, going to I am going to sing, but I wanted to tell you these things first. I'm really excited. So there are a number of different banjo styles, right? There's, broadly speaking, you can look it into like up picking and down picking, like big, huge categories. And in up picking, you have three finger scrug style. You also have Keith melodic and Reno single string. And if you're a bluegrass player, you're going to learn a little bit of those other two, just a little bit, not too much. But then the other big style would be claw hammer. And then Pete Seeger had his own style. And then there's like classical, and I can do a little bit of classical. But I was like, you know what? I really need to learn claw hammer. Like, I really need to learn it. Like, I feel like even though it's a very different style, it's important for me to learn it. And I've practiced claw hammer a little bit here and there, but like, you know, not extensively. But I just went and I got this new book, Claw Hammer for the Complete Ignoramus. And I'm very excited to like practice my claw hammer. So hopefully sometime in the future, you will hear some claw hammer stuff. But then, and this is not going to mean a lot to you, but it means a lot to me. I've been really I really love the Keith style banjo play. Not a lot of people use it, but I really like it. Sometimes it's also called melodic style. So I went and I just got a Bill Keith book, and Tony Trishka, who's an amazing banjo player, put together a book on how to do melodic banjo. And I got those books so that I can practice my melodic banjo. And I just want you to know, do not be surprised if in the future some slightly different banjo stylings pop out. Because I really want to get some of those, like, good stuff going on there. Maggie's waiting. Yeah, no singing this week, because sometimes you got to do instrumentals. But singing for my tunes, I'm very excited about. So, I'm going to sing some tunes, and I'm going to first start off with the name game, because we had some subs and resubs, and I want to give some honor and love to our people who have subbed, because everyone who subs is somebody, like, I appreciate all of you who sub very, very much. And so, y'all, the name game. Come on, everybody. I say now, let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. Chromatic, I got an answer for you. The first letter of the name. I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F. Or an M will appear. And then I say bow at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. Then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. Wizard styles, bo, Bizzard styles, banana, fanner, foe, Fizzard styles, fee, fi, mo, Mizzard styles. Wizard styles, and Bar Garwin, Bar Garwin, banana feta foot from Bar Garwin, fee fi mum Bar Garwin, Bar Garwin, the name game. Nice. Okay, so Chromatic, there is a piece that I wrote, a banjo piece that I wrote, and it is really hard to play, and I am super out of practice. It is really hard to play. I don't know what I was thinking. And I have decided that I'm going to start practicing that piece again so that I can play it for you all. So you can hear this one piece that I wrote that I really love this piece. It's this instrumental piece, and I wrote it, and it's a little complicated, but because it involves like some really, like, there's this middle section that is super intense, and I need to see if I can get my fingers back so I can do that section again, which is, well, anyway, but I'm going to start practicing that so I can play it for you all. Because maybe you'd like it. But also, we just got some bits, and I have a bunch of originals, actually, Crit Witch, but this one I might play for you. And I would like to thank everyone who's donated bits, Rissa, and also Jose Satan, so thank you. And I am going to sing We're in the Money, as sung by Ginger Rogers, from the film Gold Diggers of 1933, which means I'm going to sing it in Pig Latin. Irway and hey, the anime. Irway and hey, the anime. Iway at gale at way of way at way it wakes to tit gale young way. Irway and hey, the anime. Either I skays are on say. Old man the 80 and pray, ooh, they stay on way hungry. Iwe ever eat red lions lay, of way at Brian's lay, oot today. And we see the end, Lord will look left, the eye got right in the eye. We're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. Yay! All right. That was awesome. Hey, everybody, thank you for this like lovely hanging out time that we did. I appreciate that very much. Where you can find me next and what is up. So I have to update my actual calendar on the Twitch, and I will do that. But next week, on Tuesday, we should be doing Divinity, Simply Divine. And that'll be like Dot and I playing Divinity Original Sin. Thursday will be Long Dark, which will be awesome. And we'll see my hypothermia and hernias game. And then Friday, I don't know. Look, so here's the thing. I'm going to tell you. There's a thing, the secret thing I can't say, the NDA thing, right? There's an NDA thing that I cannot talk about, which involves me writing some stuff, and the due date that they gave me in the email about it is the 14th of January. But we had this conversation at the beginning of the week, but I can't get any information that I need to do the writing until I get the contract. And they were going to mail me the contract in the mail, but the contract has not arrived yet in the mail. So I don't know when the contract is going to happen. And then when it does happen, I cannot get the materials that I need to start working on the stuff until after they get the... So I don't know when I'm going to be able to start writing, is what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know when I can start writing. And we're going to we might have to have a conversation about that 14th deadline. But the point is that, yes. Anyway, so what will I be doing an RPG next Friday? I don't know, but I did purchase something so that I could do an RPG, a special Friday RPG for you all that I'm really excited about. Really excited. It's a bit of a surprise, but I won't tell you yet. However, so Friday's up in the air. We'll see. I might do something the Friday after. I might do something this Friday. I can't tell you. We'll find out. But what I can tell you is Saturday, more The Outer Worlds, and maybe actually The Outer Worlds this time. But on Sunday is going to be the 19th is going to be my 5-year streamiversary, and I'm going to be streaming from noon to noon on Sunday. Noon to midnight. Noon, 12 hours. Noon Eastern to midnight Eastern on Sunday the 19th December. And my brain does work under pressure. Well, it doesn't work better. It's just that it's not about the brain working better, Ice Bunny. It's about motivation. It's executive dysfunction. If you have ADHD, makes it hard to start things. If you don't have pressure, it doesn't mean that your brain works better. Often it doesn't, but it's just harder to get things started. Anyway, the point is, I'm going to do a 12-hour stream, and I do now have all 4 players confirmed as of this morning for the German language stream at noon Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT. And that's going to be a Call of Cthulhu one-shot in German, which is something I really, really wanted to do. And it is very, very... Oh, Grinning Moon, there is a name for it. Yes. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to put them all in a Discord together, and then we're going to, group chat, and then we're going to sort of work it all out. And so that is 100% confirmed for noon. And right now I'm working on getting the players confirmed for the 8 p.m. game, which will be Fiasco, the new edition. Boop, boop, boop. And that's what I'm working on right now, is to get that one. So hopefully we will have Call of Cthulhu in German at noon, and Fiasco at 8 p.m., which gives us a middle section of the streamiversary, and we will find out what... I have various thoughts about that middle part, which I will let you all know. Anyway, streamiversary next Sunday. That's what we got, and that's it. And I will see you all later. I want to thank you all for being here. I have a new tattoo I cannot show you just yet, but I have a tweet where you can see it. And you all are the best. I just have the best community, and I appreciate everyone who hangs out with me. And I'm going to eat some food. Let's see. Time says, we need assigned accounts back from clients, which were 3 days late because of Christmas post. The boss observes, did they send it by Pony and Trap? This is a question I have, actually. So crossing my fingers. So I will talk to you all later, and we will chat more. So thank you all for being here. Hydrate, take care of yourselves, do something nice for yourselves. And I will, Clockwork Librarian says, This was fun and educational, my favorite combination. Have a good weekend. Thank you. It's also my favorite combination. So look forward to some very cool things happening, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye, everyone.